This is episode number 83 of Heavy or Not, and it's the third part of a sports reform mini-series focused on college football because it's such a big impact sport and such a drain economically.
You know, if you follow college football, you've probably felt it, that nagging sense that the sport has just kind of lost its way. I mean, with all the chaotic conference shuffling, the transfer portal madness, and these insane budgets, a lot of us are asking, is the game we love even broken? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really comprehensive proposal that says, yes, it can be fixed, but not with little tweaks, with a complete structural reset. So, what's the root of the problem? Well, according to this blueprint, the issues we see today, hollow championships, fans feeling totally disconnected, these aren't just random accidents. Nope. They're the direct result of deliberate choices that have completely ignored geography, twisted what competitive balance means, and basically treated tradition like it's optional. In other words, the system itself is the problem. And that really brings us to the big question, right? The one that's on pretty much everyone's mind. Is the fundamental structure of college football, a sport that means so much to so many, is it actually broken? This proposal argues pretty forcefully that yes, it is. But, and this is the really important part, it also lays out a path forward. All right, so before we can even get to the fix, we've got to understand exactly what's broken. Let's start by really diagnosing the core problems that this whole proposal is designed to solve. This framework points to a few huge flaws. First, there's a massive resource gap where the rich just keep getting richer and the gap is widening. Second, and this is a big one, competition is being decided in boardrooms, not on the actual field. You got just a few powerhouses that dominate everything, while other schools are stuck in this crazy spending race just trying to keep up. The main takeaway here, the structure itself seems to be predetermining the winners and losers before a ball is even snapped. And this gets to a really critical point in the whole argument. The idea is that competitive outcomes are now shaped more by a team's conference than by its actual performance. I mean, think about it for a second. Your affiliation dictates your schedule, your media exposure, your entire path to the postseason. For the teams inside that power structure, a loss can be absorbed. But for those on the outside, a single loss can be a death sentence. Like the caption says, that isn't competition, that's pre-selection. So the crucial point is this. What happens when how well you run your program doesn't matter as much as it should? Right now, even with strong leadership, great coaching, and smart planning, you can't always overcome these structural barriers. The system as it is today can literally trap well-run, competent programs behind these huge financial and political walls, denying them a fair shot no matter how well they actually perform. Okay, so we've seen the problems, but this proposal doesn't just complain, it actually builds something new. So let's get into the solution, a pretty radical new foundation for the sport, one that's designed to bring back fairness and meaning. So the core idea here is a complete and total reset. It's creating a single top-flight competitive tier of 80 teams. And the goal is simple, get the best programs competing against each other all the time. This ensures meaningful games, it restores the very essence of college football, and it brings back that deep-seated regional pride that we all love. So you might be asking, how in the world would you organize these 80 teams? Well, the answer in this proposal is actually really simple and powerful. It's built on two principles that have been at the heart of college football for over a century: geography and rivalry. First things first, bringing back the traditions that make this sport so special. We're talking about those historic regional matchups that create culture, build community, and generate that intense fan engagement you see like here. The argument is pretty clear. When you ignore geography, the sport really loses its soul. And here is exactly what that looks like in practice. You've got the top 80 teams, and they're organized into 8 regional pods of 10 teams each. You can see how this would immediately cut down on travel, bring rivals way closer together, and create a really clear, logical structure for the whole regular season. And you can just instantly see how powerful this would be, right? I mean, imagine the huddle pod where Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and others are just battling it out every single year. Or the tackle pod down in the Southeast. What a gauntlet. Teams like Georgia, Alabama, and Florida State. These pods create high-stakes, local matchups week in and week out. It's fantastic. But hey, this system isn't just about restoring old rivalries. Its other foundational pillar is pure, unadulterated, performance-based accountability. It's all about making sure that success is earned on the field, not decided by some backroom deals. And here is the mechanism for that accountability. This number, 5, this represents the number of teams that get relegated from the top 80 tier every single year based on their performance. Yeah, think of it just like promotion and relegation in European soccer. If you finish at the bottom, you're out. You get sent down to a lower tier. This makes sure there's constant movement and that no team, no matter how famous, can ever afford to get complacent.
This is episode number 83 of Heavy or Not, and it's the third part of a sports.
Yes, you need the resources, but those resources don't guarantee you a spot. So investment is treated as a...
In Michigan and Ohio State with their natural Great Lakes rivals.
What about the West Coast? Their identity has been completely fractured lately.
They try to repair that with what they call the grandstand pod. This aligns key rivals like Cal, USC, and Oregon, so they're playing their regional counterparts every single year. The goal is stability and tradition.
So you're creating 8 little mini leagues. But what about the national picture? Does this make college football too small?
They argue it actually restores national interest through the playoffs, which would happen after the pod championships. But the 10-team pod structure creates a 9-game schedule inside your own pod. That leaves one open date for teams to schedule someone outside their pod. So that's where you can get those national matchups, but they become strategic choices, not required budget-breaking trips.
That is smart. It gives teams an outlet for their national profile without wrecking the regional stability. Okay, speaking of national profiles, what about the famous independents? I mean, Notre Dame's whole brand is built on being an outlier. How do they handle an exception like that?
They actually carve out a specific space for them. Notre Dame's unique status, their revenue strategy, all that is preserved. But, and it's a big but, there's a hard boundary. They would not be eligible for the top flight tier playoffs unless they chose to fully join a geographic pod, like the Huddle Pod.
So their independence remains, but their shot at a championship is tied to being part of the accountable structure.
That's it, exactly. They could still play a tough schedule, using that open date slot to play pod teams or other independents, like, say, the annual Army-Navy game.
Which brings up the service academies. Are they in the top 80?
It's interesting. Army and Navy are specifically placed outside the top 80.
Why?
Because their traditional schedule, especially that December game, just conflicts with the proposed playoff structure. So they would play an independent schedule at the next level down. But Air Force is considered top 80 ready. They're placed in the Blitz pod with other plains and mountain teams.
Okay, now let's talk about the programs left outside that top 80. The sources aren't just saying they're not good enough. They actually identify specific competitive ceilings.
Right. The argument is that these programs really struggle against elite teams because of these deep infrastructure and roster limitations. They actually categorize the reasons. One is just inconsistent on-field success.
So teams that can't ever seem to sustain excellence.
Yeah, they're always rebuilding. Another one is limited long-term investment, in things like facilities.
And I've got to imagine the rise of NIL has only made that gap wider.
Oh, absolutely. The documents point directly to what they call facilities NIL or depth gaps. When you play a top 80 team, your structural disadvantages just mean you can't sustain a championship run. It's not a punishment. It's just an honest assessment that they're operating at a different level.
But the whole point of a dynamic system is that those disadvantages aren't permanent. They can earn their way in, right?
That is the hinge of the entire reform. The current structure has permanent, fixed membership. This plan introduces the crucial element for accountability, the promotion and relegation mechanism.
Okay, this is the big one. This is the shakeup for American sports. How do they keep it impartial? How do you keep committees and politics out of it?
It's designed to be purely mathematical. It's based entirely on your on-field performance within your pod. The goal is annual accountability. You have to perform constantly to keep your status.
No complacency.
None. And the core rule is simple and non-negotiable. 5 up and 5 down every year.
5 teams relegated from the top 80 and 5 promoted from a sub-tier. Wow. That means more than 6% of the elite league is on the chopping block every single season. The stakes for every game just went through the roof.
It creates instant pressure and excitement. If you're a traditional powerhouse and you're struggling in November, suddenly that final game isn't just for pride.
It's for survival. It's to stay in the top 80 and keep your revenue stream.
Exactly.
So let's look at that sub-tier, because that's where the hope and the competitive spirit really live for those other programs.
The sources outline a massive sub-tier, about 40-plus teams. Just like the top tier, these programs are grouped into 4 regional sub-tier pods: Northeast, Southeast, Central, and Western.
And they use the same geographic logic for the sub-tier.
Identical. Same rules, 10-team pods, same geographic focus. It preserves their rivalries, it minimizes their travel, and it creates a level playing field for them. But the real prize is getting promoted.
Okay, let's do the math on promotion. We need 5 teams to move up. How do they pick them?
So you get 4 automatic promotions. The champion of each of the 4 regional sub-tier pods, they automatically move up to the top 80.
Simple meritocracy. I like it.
Clean and simple.
That covers 4 of the 5 spots. What about that last wild card position?
That's what they call the promotion bonus spot. This 5th team is the winner of a single elimination tournament that's played between the 4 teams that finished in 3rd place in their respective subpods.
Wow, that is brilliant. Let me just break that down for you listening.
It's called the sub-tier promotion and championship structure.
Quite a mouthful.
Our mission really is to map out the 5 unique, and I mean demanding, pathways that teams have to navigate just to claw their way up to that elite tier. So the whole system, this sub-tier, it's broken down into 4 distinct regions.
So think of them as 4 separate regional leagues all running at the same time.
And the baseline is the same for everyone. Every single team, no matter which pod they're in, plays this really intense 9-game regular season.
Just 9 games?
Just 9 games. And that performance is the ultimate filter. I mean, it dictates everything that follows.
From getting a direct shot at promotion to maybe getting a second chance.
A second chance in a very, very high stakes tournament. Yeah.
All right, let's start with the most direct path then. The direct ascent. This is for the teams that just killed it in the regular season.
Right. The structure is set up to immediately reward the absolute best performers. So specifically, the teams that finish first and second in those 9 games.
In their own pod.
In their own pod, yes. They automatically advance to the postseason. They've earned their shot, and their entire season now boils down to one single day of reckoning.
Okay, so top 2 finish in each of the 4 pods. That gets you into this crucial match. But just so everyone's clear, this isn't some kind of series. Right?
No, not at all. No best of 3, no semifinals.
It's one and done.
That's precisely what makes the pod championship game such a brutal test. It is a one-off, single elimination final. It happens right after the regular season ends, and it is the definition of sudden death pressure.
Wow. So you've got 2 teams who've proven they're the best in their region over 9 games, but only one gets to cash in. So what happens to the winner?
The winner of that single game is crowned the pod champion, which, is prestigious.
That's fair bragging rights.
Bragging rights, exactly. But the real prize is immediate, guaranteed promotion to the elite tier for the next season. It's the ultimate payoff for finishing top 2 and then executing when it matters most.
So the math here is pretty simple then. We have 4 pods.
Northeast, Southeast, Central, and West.
So 4 pods, that means 4 championship games, which means 4 champions. And that's our first 4 promotions. 4 tickets punched.
Correct.
Right.
But if you really analyze the psychology here, you have to think about the runner-up. The team that finished second, maybe even tied for first in the standings, fought all the way to that final and then lost. Their season is just over. They're stuck in the sub-tier for another year because of one bad game.
It just highlights how fragile excellence is in the system. 9 games of brilliance can be completely erased. That brings us to the crucial 5th spot. If we only have 4 pod champions, where does that last promotion come from?
And this is where the system gets really clever. It shifts from just rewarding outright excellence to rewarding consistency and resilience.
How so?
Well, it sort of acknowledges that, maybe the second best or even the third best team in a really strong pod might actually be better than the champion of a weaker one.
Right. Okay. So this is where it gets really interesting. The structure throws a lifeline, but not to the runner-up who just lost that devastating final game.
No, their season is done. They're out.
The lifeline goes to the team that finished third, the team that was consistent, but maybe not quite dominant enough to make that pod final.
Exactly. The focus shifts entirely to the third place finishers. These 4 teams, so the bronze medalists from the Northeast, Southeast, Central, and West, they get automatic entry into a whole separate postseason tournament.
And this tournament is designed specifically for that 5th and final promotion slot.
That's its only purpose.
So these 4 teams, they've just missed the direct path, and now they get a second chance. But it's a totally different beast. It's not regional anymore.
That's the key difference. It becomes interregional. They've just played 9 games against their geographic rivals, and now suddenly they're thrown into a national level competition.
And it's not based on rank like the pod championship. The sources say this thing is, well, it introduces pure chaos.
It's a mini 3-game, 4-team bracket tournament. And that chaos, literal draw from a hat. It's fascinating. Your opponent isn't seeded. You're not paired against the team with the worst record.
Yeah.
It's just random luck.
What does that do to a team? I mean, psychologically, but also just logistically?
Psychologically, it's immense stress. You can't scout your opponent. You can't prepare until that draw is final. But logistically, the consequences are enormous.
Like what?
Well, imagine the third place team from the Central Pod draws the team from the West. They're suddenly facing a massive travel burden, a cross-country trip on incredibly short notice.
Right, because this whole tournament is over in what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks. So you have to recover, manage the travel, prepare for a team you might know nothing about, all in the space of a few days.
Yeah.
The structure demands this rapid, high-stakes adaptability.
So walk us through that timeline. It sounds intense.
It is. Week 1 is the semifinals. 2 games played right after the draw at a neutral pre-selected site. The pressure is immediate. You lose, your season is over. Just like that.
And the 2 winners advance.
The 2 winners advance. And the very next week, week 2, those 2 surviving teams meet in the finals.
So in about 10 days, a team has to win 2 sudden death games against opponents from completely different parts of the country. That's a gauntlet.
It's an absolute gauntlet. And the victor of that final game, they secure the coveted 5th and final promotion spot. It turns what would have been a respectable third-place finish into this war of attrition.
They don't just win a promotion, they survive a mini-tournament.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's put these 2 paths side by side for a second. We have the direct win path, where the top 2 teams in a pod play 1 game for one of 4 spots.
Right.
And then we have the second chance path, where the 4 third-place teams have to endure this 2-week, 3-game bracket against unfamiliar opponents for 1 single spot.
For the teams that finished first or second, it's all about that one championship game. For the team that comes out of the third-place tournament, they had to win 5 pressure games in 14 days.
With travel, with all of it. I mean, it raises a question about fairness, doesn't it? Is it really balanced that the 5th promoted team has to prove its worth while the first 4 only had to win once after the season?
The system is really designed to reward that regular season performance exponentially.
So finishing top 2 gives you the easier road.
It gives you the path of least resistance. You earn that minimal time commitment by being one of the top 2. The 3-game tournament is the system's way of saying, okay, you are good enough to be third, so you deserve an opportunity. But that opportunity is going to come with maximum difficulty.
So the incentive is to fight like crazy to avoid third place.
Absolutely. The number 1 goal is still to finish first or second, because that single game bottleneck is just statistically and physically easier to get through. But the genius of it,
Go on.
the genius is that the third place path means that even teams in 4th place still have something to play for late in the season. If third place is within reach, they're fighting for a shot at that tournament. No one gets mathematically eliminated early.
Okay, what about a strategic calculation? Could a team ever find themselves thinking, we can't beat the first place team in our pod, they're a juggernaut. Maybe we should aim for third and take our chances in the random draw.
That's a fascinating thought experiment, but I think it's highly
Good evening.
unlikely in
Good
practice.
evening.
Two big reasons. First,
Uh,
trying to land in third place on
we
purpose is
still
just
have
too
about
risky. You could slip to
39
fourth and get
minutes
nothing.
before we start.
And second, that one game final, as high pressure as it is still just one game. Winning 3 games in 2 weeks is arguably a much harder competitive feat.
The reward for finishing
39
top
minutes
2 is
before
that
we
low
start.
time commitment.
Exactly. You maximize your chance by minimizing the number of wins you need.
So the system really does work on multiple levels. It rewards excellence with the shortest path, and it rewards consistency with the hardest path.
It forces teams to completely change their competitive mentality depending on which path they end up on. The pod champions come out of an intense local rivalry. The fifth team emerges from a war of attrition against total strangers.
It's just a really smart piece of competitive architecture. It's built to maximize intensity right to the final whistle.
And that means those final 2 weeks in the sub-tier season are just pure drama. You have the 4 single-elimination pod championship games running at the same time as the chaotic multi-regional third-place tournament.
So every team that's still in it has a championship event to focus on, whether it's regional or national.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's just nail down the summary. It's a 2-part system. 4 promotions come from the 4 pod championship games. That's for the top 2 regular season teams. And one final hard-won promotion is secured through that wild third-place tournament, giving us 5 total paths for 5 teams to get to the elite tier next season.
It ensures that the promoted teams aren't just good at winning, they're good at surviving very specific kinds of pressure.
How much of a psychological advantage does that 5th team, the one that survived the sudden death pressure of the third-place tournament, bring with them to the elite tier?
That's a great question.
I mean, they didn't just win a championship
We have
game. They won
about,
games on short rest against unknown cross-regional
37
opponents.
minutes or
They
36
proved their
minutes before we
logistical,
start.
strategic, and mental toughness under conditions that were far more chaotic than what the other champions faced. Does surviving that gauntlet, does it inoculate them against future pressure? So nearly every single game in that sub-tier has massive stakes. You're either fighting for automatic promotion or to get into that bonus tournament or just to avoid the drop. The result is real hope for every program.
And if you connect all of this back to the big picture, the whole proposal is designed to restore integrity. It ensures natural competition, it aligns regions, and it ties accountability directly to what happens on the field, not what a committee thinks about brand names.
It's a truly radical shift, moving college football away from these fixed outcomes and political barriers toward a dynamic system that's driven purely by performance and regional identity.
It really creates a fascinating thought experiment for anyone who follows the sport.
It does. Since this plan is all about merit and accountability over prestige, think about this as you go through your week. Which historical powerhouse team won that currently benefits from all the structural advantages but maybe has had some dips in performance? Which one do you think would be most likely to face relegation in the first couple of seasons under a system like this? Something to chew on.
We'd like you to like, subscribe, react with your comments, and forward to your athletic directors, coaches, and friends in the media. Send it to your team list. All of the slides and background materials are available for you to take from the public domain and merge into your own article or rebuttals. See us over at 4rs.org or the Substack.
I told them 11 p.m. Is it okay with you, Coach? Rich?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, is that about a half?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Because Kenya before asked that if it's possible that they can have the schedule at 6 p.m. for them for their time. So we tried to reach out for Kenya.
Okay, and I'm very happy with that. Glad to
Coach,
help in
your
your
voice is quite small.
Okay, let me see what I can do to make it better. Thank you for letting me know. Is this any better?
Yeah.
That's
Better.
good now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got the big microphone now.
Guys, take advantage of talking to our speaker. You have about 33 minutes to talk to him. Okay? You want to ask questions? You can ask questions under the sun.
And what I may also be doing is just making sure that I have all the information ready for the presentation in the folder.
Yep, Coach.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I got the 4-pillar supplement. It's a keynote.
Right.
That's
need it-
harder to share. I'm just
What do you-
figuring out how I have a Mac too, but I'd have to sort of flip over there and then save it as a PDF. I wonder if
I can send it as a PDF to you.
Yeah, that would be fabulous.
All right, hold on one second. Let me reply. I'm pretty sure I saved it as a PDF.
I got the first one you sent as both. That
Okay.
was for me last night, but
All right, so I think this 4 pillars is a PDF. Tell me if you got that one.
okay, then you got the stroke scorecards too.
Right, that's a PDF, right?
Yep. Okay. New file came in. Yep. Fabulous. Okay, then do you see the widgets area?
I'm in the widgets area.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the poster.
Okay,
And then, so there's one Rich Rogers present.
right.
Yep. So that's where today's first slides appeared.
Okay, are the other ones in there as well yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, then I'll
You
go.
know,
I'll wait.
and if what we could possibly do, I was going to show this. Let's take a minute and see if your former presentations was able to roll. I'm going to
Welcome
click
to the
on
presentation by Rich Rogers, who's a coach
Yeah.
in Florida.
So this is an
who
hour
is
and
going to talk about periodization and the science.
yeah, so that's an hour and 2 minutes. We don't have that much time until you present. But we could, Dennis, we could show the beginning of Rich's talk the last time, just as a way to warm up the audience.
Yes,
Or
yes.
we could just keep it open. But I am streaming now to the Facebook group and to YouTube. It might be good to show Rich's presentation from
Okay, no
earlier in
problem.
the year. There are 7 attendees now, and then I don't know how many are watching
Welcome
on
to
the
the
stream.
presentation by Rich Rogers, who's a coach in Florida, who is going to talk about periodization and the science of structuring a
And
successful
I'll load
season.
these.
He'll also be
Okay,
talking
thank you.
about the Super Sport Systems as a software package.
Hi, guys, everybody. Happy New Year. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry to hear about any terrible weather and situations. Thoughts and prayers go out to everyone that's affected. Well, I'd love to start out by saying that sharing what you know is a privilege, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this. And anything that I can do to help in the future, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be there. If I need to explain anything to you on a personal level, I'm always available to do that as well. Basically, what we're going to talk about today is not just classical periodization, but more the application of how do you take the science of swimming and put it into play on an everyday basis, and making sure that we take a look at the tools and situations that we can utilize to make that happen. The science of a successful season, okay? How modern periodization turns planning into performance. Basically, what we're going to talk about today is how do you take a swimmer from point A and get them to point B? And what are some of the tools that you can utilize to make sure that we do that? So we're looking at the principles of biological adaptation in season design. Now, I'm not going to read through everything step by step because I know that you have relative intelligence and you guys can take a look at this as well. But we have to make sure that when we're doing this, that we have priority and sequencing involved. A lot of times when people are dealing with seasonal design, they're kind of taking some test sets or what they did last year and trying to make sure that they use that information. And basically, modern periodization looks at the body, where it is, where we're trying to go, and then creates a pathway to go from that point A to point B.
My fault. I'm uploading his stuff and wanted to rename it, and I clicked out of it.
Thank you. And also, if I talk right now, am I going to be talking over the presentation, or if I
Yeah,
open
unless
up?
your microphone's off. So
Yeah.
I got your stroke store cards for two different pieces. One is for the that they can download.
Okay.
If they click that button now, people could do that. But
Okay.
we'll also be able to show them one by one. There's, they just don't 1, 2, 3, 4. There's the
Okay.
assessment scorecards there, and then or you can download a whole file.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, and now let's go back to. I'll try to get us caught up to where you left off.
Welcome to the presentation by Rich Rogers. He's a coach in
Looks at the body, where it is, Wimmer interprets it as B, the coach sees C, and then they both describe it as D at the end. So making sure that you're very precise in the definition of what your energy zone is and what are the parameters for you to utilize those energy zones in terms of length of time, duration, intensity. Those are all crucial factors in making sure that you're not having a guesswork from going to your daily planning to the end of the season. So defining those energy zones and making sure that everybody's on the same page is a crucial part of what you're going to be doing in an effective seasonal design. When you're looking at the progression as well, you're really looking at that start of the season through that targeted championship meet. And what you're trying to do then is create basically a pathway for each one of the energy zones on when do you hit those energy zones at what level, and how do you take that distribution curve over the course of the season so you're maximizing the return on the effort that you put in. So if you think about it, the way that I like to talk to my swimmers when I'm doing this is basically if we use the 5 Russian energy zone system, and there's subzones inside there, so you have 9 of them. So basically, in a very simplistic way, if the body has 9 gas tanks that you have to fill up from the beginning of the season to the end, at what point in time do you fill up each one of those individual gas tanks to make sure that at the end of the season, you have everything that you need and all the fuel that you need inside of your body from a physiological standpoint to give yourself the best opportunity for success. So that is the overall big arc, as I have it over here, or the bird's eye view of how you're looking at your season to make sure that you have the progression in the right
you will
sense.
attend.
And again,
You
what we're
can
looking
check
at
in
there
now.
is once we have this whole
9 p.m. Now you can check in now. Okay. Thank you.
whole season, taking from point A to point B and then all the way to Z at the end, how do you break that up from a load distribution standpoint per week? And when you're doing that, you also then have to take a look at the days of the week and how each one of these energy zones interacts with another one. Sometimes energy zones can bleed into each other. So taking a really focused look at how do you make day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, and how do you load each one of those energy zones so you get the maximum amount of adaptation and also the maximum rest that you need for the following day for that adaptation to occur. So even if you take a look at this 1 week cycle that we have right here, each one of those different colors, really we're looking at a different energy zone and a different load for that specific day. And you can notice from this is, I believe, like a week 9 in the middle of a 16-week season. There's basically a microcycle for 3 days. You can see that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are similar. to Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So that gives you the opportunity to have the load that you need for each one of those energy zones without bleeding in the next day into the same energy zone and not giving that other system or that gas tank basically the opportunity to rest and grow. One of the other things that's really important is utilizing parametric training within each one of the seasons. Parametric training is very adaptable. It's something that is a concept that the swimmers really can appreciate, and it gives you basically the opportunity to increase adaptation by changing one parameter over time. So for example, if we're looking at, we want to increase basic endurance, and we're looking at starting at week one of a parametric set that might last for 8 weeks, starting out with 6 100s on 130. And then by the end of the process, we might be going to 16 100s. Basically, what we're trying to do is increase the number of repetitions that we can do, holding the same time or better with about the same rest. So that way the capacity then changes, and over that period of time, that one parameter has helped mold the athlete into a more efficient swimmer. A lot of this also comes down to, how do we take all this stuff? How do we take the seasonal plan? How do we take the weekly load? How do we take the daily load? And how do we make sure that we put all these things into play? So this is just a basic snapshot of something that we do. And we're going to go into the application of how these things work in a moment. But I just wanted to give you a brief overview of where we are. One thing that I love about a scientific approach to seasonal training design is that it really helps create a culture and really helps create personal responsibility about what you're trying to do. If you design your season where energy zones have specific times that the swimmer has to hold over a course of a week, and then those times change as the progression curve changes over the course of time, it gives them that target that they need where every set becomes a test set. So you're not dealing with just a simple test set and then swimmers doing whatever they want to do. Every time they push off the wall becomes a test set because they're trying to hold that prescribed time. And over time, when they buy into this type of a concept, they understand the efficiency and the value of everything that they do when they push off the wall. So this is not just an educational component for the swim coaches to understand all these different levels. It's a communication tool for you to deal with your athletes and tell them, look, we're not just going to get in here and swim hard. And we all appreciate when swimmers swim hard, but we're going to swim strategically. We're going to understand what we're doing each time we push off the wall. And we're going to then focus in on what you individually have to do to make sure that you have that accountability and you have success at this end of the season. Okay, I'm going to go through this. I threw a bunch of stuff out there. I would love for you to see how the season is structured, how we do this, but also I just want you to realize that too many times in our environments as coaches, we have lost the ability to help every individual within a group because it's very, very difficult to have targeted times for everyone. It's hard to have targeted times for everyone when you're dealing with individuals. So what this system does, it allows you to set up group structures and then have times for everyone in the group itself. Okay, what I described was a big overview of a system that was developed by Dr. Sergey Belev of Supersport Systems. I had the pleasure of meeting with him in the early 2000s when he was here and had the accumulated knowledge of the former Soviet Union in terms of their training process, training optimization process. And over the course of a couple of decades, he's refined what he's done and how he does it and how he offers it to coaches. It's a system that is really designed to help coaches give super specific workouts for individuals in groups and individuals within groups over time. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of how this works, to show you how powerful it is. And I have no financial stake in any of this. I just want to make sure that people understand that there is a tool out there that can help you go from where you want to be to where you want to go just by following some simple guidance and know that the science behind it is real. Right here, right now, I just set up one swimmer, and this swimmer basically just finished in the short course yards at 2:02:39 for his 200 breaststroke, and he's 15 years of age. We're going to target a result at the ISCA Senior Cup, just under 2 minutes, which is a 1.96 progression rate over the course of 13 weeks. So basically, he's dropped an amazing amount of time. For example, in the 200 breaststroke, let's say he's gone from 210 to 202 in a season. And so these types of progression rates are not unusual when you're dealing with the 3S suite of tools. So right now, what I'm going to do is go to the season setting. You can see that I put in his information, where we are, where we want to be. I can go into the second profile and put in his exact times that we're going to need. And then if I go into the seasonal planning tool, what this does is it says, okay, if you're starting your season on 12/15 and we're going to end it at the ISCA Senior Cup in March, these are the weeks that we're going to go, and it breaks it up into the 4 phases that 3S utilizes. You have the pull-in phase, the accumulation phase, the realization phase, and the taper phase. This big black line right here basically shows you the accumulated yardage that you're going to have over the course of each one of these weeks. This is yardage, this is time. So we're starting out with a low amount of yardage, we're pulling in, and then we're building up during the accumulation phase. The realization phase, it goes down because intensity goes up, rest goes up, and then we have our taper at the end. And this is not warm up, warm down, or recovery. And these are the individual energy zones underneath. And you can see how during the course of the season, each one of the energy zones is targeted at a different amount at a different time. So what you're getting here is based on a progression curve of where the season starts, where you want them to be. You can see right here around week number 8, he'd be at his season best time, and then going through on the progression curve. This progression curve also allows us to determine what percentage of speed the athlete will be doing for each one of the energy zones over the course of that week. So the times and the paces for your energy zone prescriptions change over time dynamically with the progression curve for that athlete for that particular season. And all this is done behind the scenes. It's important to know what it does, but even if you're not sure how this works, it does this for you. Now, you can adjust the training strategy from sprint, mid-distance, distance. If you're really experienced with how you want to move these, you can actually go ahead and edit what we're doing. Let's just say for this particular athlete, I know that I want to do 9% of zone 3. I can save that. Everything will get dynamically adjusted. It'll take away from the 1B. And just so we're all clear, 1B is the smoothest of the energy zones, and 5A is the fastest of the energy zones. And if I go back over here now, we can take a look at those zones a little more clearly than in that presentation. This is basically the definition of each one of these energy zones. And this is a zone description. This is the time limits of each of those in terms of work. And you can see that in each one of them, they change. This is important because when a lot of times when coaches are designing sets, they design the sets sometimes outside of the energy zone's parameters. And that makes a difference because if you're going, let's say, 20 minutes of work and you think you're doing 1B, the body really can't sustain that over time, and you're really going into zone 2. So it's important when you're designing these sets that you have these time limits in mind, understanding what it is. A 3S will take your workout. It will give you the time that you need to hold in order to stay within that energy zone for that specific stroke, for that specific week. So all these things get taken into account. It gives the athletes basically a targeted for each one, a targeted set and what they would really like to do for each time they push off the wall for every set. let's going back to the season right here in planning. So we have this season right now, and for this particular athlete, he's in week number 3, just starting the accumulation phase. So what we're going to do is look at the week density. How does 3S and how would a coach take these specific numbers and break them up throughout the course of the week? So I'm going to go in here into the weekly density. So as you can tell, we're in week number 3, and there's not that much diversity of energy zones, because if I go back to week 2, for example, you're going to see it's all 1A and 1B. So we're just doing a pull in. We're getting the season done. We just had winter juniors, took a transition week, getting back in the water, and we're trying to create that aerobic base. One of the things that I've spoken to coaches about that's really difficult is holding the swimmers back. A lot of times they've just finished a successful meet. They're pumped. They want to go. And it's not the time to jump into those higher energy zones. If they go into those higher energy zones too early, let's just say your body has the ability to go 8 weeks or so at that type of intensity. If you do it too soon, you're going to lose that aerobic base, and you might get some good mid-season results, but then you're going to have fatigue, a little bit of overtraining at the end, and the swimmer will be flat. So it's important to take a look at where you are in the season and make sure that you adjust that. And one of the ways that I challenge the athletes when we're in these 2 or 3 weeks where it's a lot of 1A and 1B is this is a point in time where you're thinking about distance per stroke. You're thinking about not breathing in and out of the walls. You're thinking about your underwaters. You're slowing things down. You're really focusing in on the technique, making sure that they can hold these times with perfect technique. So that way, as the season progresses and the energy zones get more intense, they're holding the technique that they garnered through the early seasons when the higher energy zones hits. So we took a look at week number 3, and you'll see that's when we introduced parametric as well. So for this particular athlete, the parametric set is starting out at 6 100s, and there's also another parametric set for 4 200s on Saturday. Let's go to week number 9. So week 9 is pretty intense. All right, so you can see that we're already up to 13 100s and 9 200s. You can also see that we're dealing with zone 2, zone 5, zone 3 on different days, and the intensity level is absolutely high. This is when the art of coaching comes into place. How do you prescribe sets for these different athletes to make sure that they have the ability to sustain the times that they're supposed to do, and you're presenting in such a fashion that they can intellectually and physically handle it? If I go into workouts, there is a workout generator inside of 3S, but what I try to do is create my own. And in doing that, I go into expert mode. And just for example, if I wanted to just show you how this works in terms of prescription. All right, so we are in week number 9. We're looking at an athlete. We're going to pretend that he warms up. I'm going to go in here, and let's say we're going to do a set in aerobic power. And we are going to do, say, 2450s. And let's do it breaststroke. Oh, that'd be horrible. We'll keep with freestyle. 15 seconds rest, and we're going to apply this. So what we're looking at here, okay, is the time that he needs to hold is 23.87, getting about 15 seconds rest. Okay, this is the zone that he's going into, zone 3A, excuse me, for freestyle. This time is relevant to week number 9 inside of this season that we set up. And if we go to a different week, we're going to get a different time based on the progression curve. What this does, it allows you as a coach to prescribe exact, pinpoint, accurate send-off keep times for each one of your athletes. Now, the thing that I haven't shown, because this is an individual athlete, is inside this program, you can also set up groups. So if this gentleman had 7 other people in his training group that were similar, that were going for the same type of event, then we could put them in, put their best times. And then if I go ahead and I do 2450s, one might be 2387, one might be 24.2, one.
Now we're going to close down the replay and bring it back to live. So I'm going to put in the chat for everybody the presentation that Rick did earlier this year, and it was on seasonal planning. And today, our presentation is a slightly different topic, and I know it's going to be great. And we've been working, and all of his slides are updated and ready to roll in his widget area. So he has 3 sets of slides. If you go to wafsu.org, you will be able to see his presentation there from the prior weeks. It's definitely something you should be checking into. So you have time to stretch your legs, get your drink. There are 18 in the meeting now, and we'll be starting in a few moments. Coach Rogers is joining us from Florida, and Dennis is in the Philippines, and I'm in also Eastern PA, Eastern time zone in Western Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh. My name's Coach Mark. I do some of the back end technical stuff. So if anybody wants to use the chat, that would be fabulous.
Okay, let's start. Okay. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon from different parts of the world. Okay, we do have here the levels, the swimming level 2, okay, certification. And this is a professional swimming certification in cooperation with the 68 organizations and schools, okay, and in cooperation and collaboration with the World Sports Advisors Association. We are having our level 2 tonight. In the Philippines, it's night. In Kenya, it's about 6 p.m. And in Bangladesh, it's about 9 p.m. We do have national coaches who are attending here. And we have students also attending here now, physical education students and sports science students. We have the honor to introduce to you our level 5 and the champion coach from USA, none other than our second time speaker, okay, which is Rich Rogers, okay. And earlier you saw the level 1 that he did, and now he will be starting the level 2. My co-host is coming from USA, a water polo coach, okay, and also the ISCA, sports management staff, okay, where he is handling most of the competition, okay, and most of the podcast, okay. We would like to introduce our Vice President, Executive Vice President, Mark Rauterkus. And for today, I would like to give the floor to our speaker, Coach Rich Rogers from United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and it's great to be here again with you. And I look forward to sharing anything that I can with you. And as always, if you have questions when it's over, because I know whenever I attend something, I always feel like I have questions after the fact. There'll be links to get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to answer anything that I can for you. The last presentation that I did was focused more on the individual performance factor? How do you structure a season for an individual and a team from a physiological standpoint, and how that is created through a progression curve, and how you understand what levels and energy zones you have to hit for each one of the different weeks in the season to get the results that you want. For this particular presentation, what I'm looking at more is the larger picture. And when I mean larger picture, I'm talking about clubs and organizations as a whole. How do you structure a developmental pathway for an individual from the beginning of their journey all through to where they can then be on an elite level? And one of the reasons that I enjoy this so much is that I really think that sometimes we don't develop an athlete as completely as we should. And a lot of that comes in structuring our programs.
Are you
I
in
know.
chat now?
I'm sorry?
Oh, sorry. Continue.
Okay. A lot of times when we're developing athletes and putting our structures together, we get very good at work, adding more yardage or doing the things that we need to do to help them to become stronger and faster. But there's such a 360-degree view that we need, especially as a developmental pathway. And I like to look at it as basically 4 pillars. And what we try to do when we're doing this is advancement is really just trying to increase the precision inside of each of the 4 pillars. So when I look at it, I think, okay, we're dealing with a wildfire when we first start out, and we want to get into where they're a laser beam later on. So the 4 pillars that I use to structure organizations is the physiological, the technical, the tactical, and the psychological. And if we look at those in terms of precision, we're looking at the physiological is precision and effort. The technical is how precise can we get their movements. The tactical is how precise and what's their precision when they're making decisions in a race. And then psychological is how precise are they under pressure and how do they handle their mindset in general. And taken as a whole, these 4 pillars are basically what is needed to go from the different levels of development and the different stages. Now, we have all seen people that are bodybuilders that might focus in on curls and their beach muscles. I'm down here in Florida. There's a lot of people that want to look good with their shirts off, and maybe they don't worry about their legs as much. There's that imbalance. And you're structuring an organization, you want to make sure that you have balance from day one, that you're attacking these things from the big picture all the way through. I try to break it up into things that are easy for the coaches, the swimmers, and also the parents that are involved and the guardians, so they understand what's going on too. Education is a huge component in terms of having everybody on the same page and understanding the intellectual underpinnings of why you do what you do. And when everybody's on the same page, it makes everything a lot easier. I know that in the United States, in a lot of the programs that I speak to and coaches, there's usually like problems in changing groups. How does Sally go into the group that Jane was in, and why? And Sally may have a faster time, but is Sally as well-rounded in all 4 of the pillars? Is she developmentally ready to go? I think a lot of times when people become quote unquote fast, they move up before they have the other underpinnings of what they need before they can move on. If they're psychologically not ready and they can't do advanced interpersonal skills and work with other people in a lane, even if they're 10 years old and can break 30 in a 50-yard freestyle, then maybe they're not ready to move up. So we really have to take a look at the whole thing. So the different levels that I look at is level 1 is foundational. And that's where you're giving them all that basic information. The second level is more developing, and the third is sustainable. The fourth is competitive. And when you get to the 5th level, that's when you're really tuning them in so they can become a high performance athlete. And again, the goal is to make sure that we have a balance of all 4 pillars by the time they successfully graduate from level 5. One of the things that I also make sure that I do in my own programs is, again, make sure that every one of the stakeholders understands the goal for each one of the pillars so they know what they have to do in order to move up from 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's talk about the physiological one first. I think it's important to make sure that the swimmers have the engine that they need in order to move. If they don't have the engine, you can have the best technique in the world, you can have the greatest mindset, you can, understand how to do the races, but if you don't have the engine, it's not going to happen. So if we're looking at the foundational levels for what I try to do in my organizations, and again, these should be tweaked based on the organizational needs of the particular uh, team that you're dealing with. But for this first level, and these are graduation requirements, okay? These are not entry requirements. For me, I want to make sure that they can do all of these things physiologically before they move up to the second level. So as you can see here on the screen, we want to make sure that they can swim freestyle continuously for 10 minutes. And it's not just back and forth, it's without their strokes falling apart. It's making sure that they have good stroke technique, concentrating on rolling, can hold a streamline. They also want to, at this point, understand the different physiological energy zone concepts. So they understand that there's one energy zone that's more smooth and that's aerobically based, and they want to understand that there's faster ones that they do a little bit later. So they understand the gear concept, and so many of the younger kids that are coming into here may have a 5 or a 10 speed bicycle, and they understand that there's different gears, whereas older kids understand gas tanks a little bit better. One of the other things that we want to make sure that they do in the level 1 physiological graduation requirement is complete a full practice consistently. So they're not constantly stopping or going to the bathroom or doing whatever, because that will degrade their opportunity to move on to the next level and be proficient there. And then what I also try to do is have an appendix of practice sets so that are appropriate for the different levels. And again, that's going to vary team by team. I'm 2.5 years new on a team that we started here in South Florida. The appendix that I have for this team is a little bit different than a team that may be 20 years that I've had and a little bit more mature. But basically, we want everything in congruence. We want to make sure that we're lining up with the physiological level, and these sets are appropriate for that. And we can look at what we do specifically later after I go through the entire process here. The second level, we want to make sure that they can control their efforts throughout the course of the set. And when we're doing this, it basically, now they understand the energy zones from a conceptual standpoint, and now we have to kind of put it into play a little bit more. In order to make sure at this level that we have the ability to do the workouts, we want to make sure that they can swim continuously for 20 minutes without having their strokes, again, fall apart, with good rhythm. They don't have to be absolutely at their 100 pace, obviously, but we want to make sure that they have that aerobic capacity and that base needed to build from the next steps. It's also very important at this particular stage that they get the concept of warming up, warming down, and recoveries between sets. Too many times, even at the higher levels, when I've intervened in teams, I can see that high-level performance people don't understand the value of warming up or warming down and recoveries at swim meets. And we could do a whole presentation on that. But if you can get them to understand these concepts at a young age, then you're really going to give them a much better opportunity to be at their best later on. So they will get the success because they will warm up, warm down, and do the recovery properly. We want to also, at this stage, make sure that they understand what the perceived exertion is for each energy zone. What I like to try to do before we get into the specifics, and those of you that jumped in here a little bit earlier when I was utilizing the program that I do for swimmers, at the higher levels, I will give them the exact paces that they need to hold for each one of the energy zones throughout the course of the season, based on a progression curve for where they need to be on that week. So if we're starting at point A and we want to get to point C, inside those weeks, we'll have specific markers that they need to hold within each of the 9 energy zones that they need to do. But before we get to that stage where we're assigning brand new swimmers times that they need to hold, we have to make sure that they understand what these perceived exertions are. Now, I know that there's a lot of programs out there that utilize perceived exertions, and they're good. And if we take a look at like zone 1B, and I use the Russian energy zones, but it could be EN1 or whatever one that you use on the aerobic capacity, I try to make sure that they understand that it's long and strong. And we move to the next one. It might be that it's hard but makeable. And then the next might be uncomfortable. And then as fast as you can hold. And then we'll try to later, when they get these perceived exertions taken care of, try to correlate some basic heart rates. And a lot of times, once you tell the kids a heart rate, they'll go like this, and you're like, okay, it's got to be 160. They're like, 160. So it's really not the greatest, but again, at this particular phase, we're looking at that wildfire. We're not looking at the laser beam, and we're just trying to get the concepts across to them so they understand the importance. So later on, when we put an optical sensor on them and we're getting the feedback from them, and we understand what their target heart rate is for their specific age, body, and fitness level, they're not new to the concepts whatsoever. I think a lot of the things that have helped in some of the successes that we've had in our programs is that educational component at a younger age. So the kids, even though they're not national level yet, understand things at a young age, and then are ready when they are there to more incorporate it rather than learn it. Then they demonstrate the repeatability across reps, and that basically is holding the set paces for each one of the energy zones. And then we want to make sure, again, that they have level practice sets that are markers to make sure that they've gotten the engine prepped to where it can go ahead and be ready for the next level. And that's where we are in level number 2. Let me go to level 3. And this is a phrase that I coined many, many years ago, and that is know thy pace, hold thy pace. And really what this is okay, at this stage in level 3, they should know what we call the 4 seasonal phases, which is your pull-in, accumulation, realization, and taper. And they should understand that each one of these phases is going to have a different ratio of aerobic to anaerobic components. The different workouts are going to be geared for different outcomes within each one of these 4 seasonal phases. Then they're also going to understand the weekly load distribution, because we're going to teach it to them. We're going to show them the different microcycles that we use, how the energy zones are then put into place to complement each other, to make sure that one energy zone isn't bleeding into another one from day 1 to day 2. So they get the maximum adaptation from each one of these loads. They also at this point start to maintain the integrity of the sets. And a lot of times what that means is that they not just understand it and they do the heart rates, but they're holding the same type of time throughout to get to those heart rates and perceived energy levels. And they can also maintain that pace when they get tired. Too many times when the younger swimmers get tired, they'll drop off, and that leads us to the next one, which is no last one, fast one approach. I know that's a very popular thing, but for me, it's know your pace, hold your pace. If we're working in energy zone 3A, we want to make sure that we are within that range for 3A and that we're holding that pace. There's no hero at the end, because then you're jumping out of zone, as I call it, and doing something different, and you're having a different approach to that specific set. And again, we're looking at completing the level practice sets on the appendix based on that particular level in your program. Okay, now you're at level 4 in the physiological progression, and you're executing race pace precision. At this point, we want to hit those zone target pace consistently. All right, what that means is you're prescribing the zones based on their goal time and based on their current fitness level at the beginning of the season for each one of the energy zones. This is where the swimmer becomes more independent and understands that they are responsible for these things, and they are a high-level athlete, and they need to hold these times in order to get the adaptation that they want at the end of the season. Now, nobody's 100% perfect, and as I'm told all the time, we are not robots. We are humans, and occasionally we're going to miss a pace, and we're going to do something. But you can correct that at this particular level. You want to make sure, okay, I fell off for a second. I had a bad turn. I got a little bit winded, but I'm going to find a way to rotate better, work on my underwaters, not breathe in and out of the turn, so I can hold that pace and get back on track. And then it goes to the technical collapse again. There's sometimes when the prior levels, maybe somebody's holding a pace, but they are throwing those arms around and making sure that they get there, which is great for the heart. But we want to make sure that we have technical precision. I'm going to use that word a lot. Be as precise as you can with your technique as you are with the targeted times as well. We're going to maintain the pace under competitive and higher zone stresses. A lot of times we have all been in a situation where we have a swimmer who has done everything that they need to do. We get them for a 400 meter and we're giving them the direction on how to make sure that they're holding a certain energy zone and they don't jump out too soon. And that first 50, boom, they go because they have so much spit and vinegar and fire and they want to just go. So they want to make sure that at this stage that they learn to maintain that pace when they're in a competitive situation and also when they're in a higher zone stress. I'm working with some athletes now that are getting to this particular position. And just this morning, I was telling them that as we hit the higher energy zones, the paces do get faster, but the rest also gets longer. And if they go ahead and slow down, then basically they're going to be detraining because they're going to get a lot more rest, but they're not going to get the fatigue factor and the adaptation that they need because the stressors aren't there at the right level. So it's really important that they understand that at this level, or you're going to give them the higher zones with the higher rest, and you're not going to get the adaptation that you want. The other thing that's important at level 4 for me is having them know the distance per stroke and stroke rate affect their speed, both in a positive manner and also in a negative manner. They want to take control of how many strokes they take, how many underwaters they do, what is their stroke rate. A lot of the conversations that you have with the swimmers at this particular stage is, all right, you were holding 1.8 on this. That was really good for your zone 2. We want to make sure that when we get to zone 3, we're a little bit more at 1.6. And all of these things that you do at this particular level translate into the race pace precision. So the conversations that you're having on deck while we're doing these paces translate immensely when you're in a competitive situation because you've talked about them and they're not something brand new to the swimmer when you get to that specific level. Again, we're looking at that appendix, and that is going to be based on the situation that you're in, and we will look at actual ones that we're using in the situation right now. Level 5, own it. Okay, we use that phrase a lot here, and that's owning everything. We want to make sure that you now understand that you're holding pace with technical precision and great execution. The paces are no longer some mythical thing that's over here that would be really great to hold. They are actual goals. And I think I said in the other presentation that I did, I try not to do test sets like most teams do. I believe that every time you push off the wall, it's a test set. You should understand exactly what pace you should be holding, hold it, and that is the test. It's also, I believe it helps bring people a sense of accomplishment every time they push off, because at this particular level, they've done it. They've been training for years. They've been focusing on all these things. What are the challenges that they have? Well, if every time you push off the wall, it's another challenge. It's something that you're testing yourself against the clock, then it makes it fun and it makes it rewarding. The other good thing about this is that when everybody understands the pacing mechanism, then everybody has a chance to be the winner of the set. Meaning if John is supposed to hold 30 and Larry is supposed to hold 28, even though Larry goes 29 and John goes 30, John might have gone slower, but he held the pace that he was supposed to hold. So he was the person that was more in that perfect execution of the set, and therefore the winner. And we can really try to positively reinforce those things as coaches, and that goes a long way with creating the culture that your team needs in order to be pace perfect, and knowing your pace and holding your pace. At this point, it's also important they demonstrate elite underwaters, okay? Body dolphins and breakouts at race pace. To me, it's an absolute shame that more people do not utilize their underwaters. I remember in the 80s watching the Burkhoff blast off. Then in 96, watching the Russian do his underwaters, and, Misty Hyman a little on her side. I mean, all these things. And we see it even to today with, Ryan Murphy coming back with his great last underwater swim. And it's been demonstrated now for decades how important that is. Gretchen Walsh, what is she, 4, 5, 5, 5 in that beautiful 100-yard freestyle butterfly because of those underwaters. And it's not a secret anymore, guys. We all know what it is. And they should be able to physiologically adapt at this point to where they do that. And you would be incredibly surprised and so happy as coaches if you do this early. I know I have 8 and 9-year-olds that go to swim meets and they're doing 14 meters underwater, and we have officials coming up and they're like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And it's because you educate them on this process earlier, and that makes it so much easier for them to do these things later on. Again, we want to make sure that they're precise under pressure with their physiological adaptation at level number 5. And this is true for workouts and for races. And again, the workouts are races in a sense, and they are test sets. And each one of them is a little bit of pressure to hold on to what you need to do at this particular phase. And when they get to level 5, one of the things that I have found is the internal pressure, because of the knowledge that they have of the importance of holding their energy zone, that they're going to have that really motivation to hold it, and that pressure to make sure that they're holding it, because they know if they don't at this phase, they're not going to have the success that they want. And then technical stability at maximum velocity. Basically what we're talking about here is, can they hold water, hold streamline, hold body position, have a tight core when they're doing their maximum velocity. And again, we have to make sure that we prepare the engine and prepare the body to give it the fuel that it needs at the end of the season to make sure that they can sustain velocity when needed. And as always, we have a appendix and a level practice set. That is the physiological portion of it. And I'm going to go into now the technical levels. Before I do that, I'm going to ask in the chat right here, does anybody have any specific questions only on the physiological aspects of it? We're going to get into all the other ones.
Coach.
Yes.
Coach.
Yes.
May I request all of the participants to put their names and their countries there?
Perfect.
On the inbox or the chat. Okay. Please.
Yes.
Please type your name and your country on the chat box, please, for us to know you. Okay. Wait. We are now 35. Okay. We just wanted to update on the attendance. Again, wait. We are now 35. We don't want losing the attendance. Please give your full name. Okay. Coach Mark, is this recorded? Their names will be recorded.
It can be, yes,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, it's good to get this taken care of now.
Okay, thank you.
And people can use the chat box, or also change the view in the gallery when the speaker speaks. It changes for you. Okay. I think
we are breaking the record for January and February, which is 35 participants now. Okay, earlier. Okay, Coach, that's yours.
Thank you. So while you're using the chat box, again, I don't want to go into all the questions about everything just yet, But maybe you can say yes or no. Do you currently have a system in place that tracks their physiological progression from novice through national? And that is with specific energy zone prescriptions from, again, the beginning of their journey to the end. If yes, that's awesome. If not, I'll show you some opportunities later. Mark, not really. Chelsea, how are you? Not really. And honestly, most organizations that I have worked with do not. It's really that perceived level. It's smooth, hard, fast. So don't worry so much if you don't have something as specific as what we were showing you. But it is really beneficial for a variety of ways. Number one, the having that system in place for the physiological portion of the four pillars will definitely scientifically vessel a swimmer from one level to the next, to the next, to the next. It will also give them the concepts and intellectual understanding of why they need to do what they need to do. And as coaches, it will definitely give us a roadmap from that physiological standpoint of how to best coach our athletes. They put so much trust, faith, and time and effort into us that it's on us to make sure that we give them everything that we need. So that's the physiological portion of that. I'm going to go back to my widget area here and talk about the technical aspects of it. You have an engine now, but if you do not move properly in the water, then you could be the strongest person in the universe and have the slowest time, because bodies have to make sure that we are as efficient as we can, that we're using the water. One of the concepts that I try to teach the kids when they're younger is that the water covers 2/3 of the earth. It's been around for millions of years. And if you try to beat it up, it's going to kill you with size and experience. So work with the water, let the water help you, and understand how to move through it. And the number one thing that I know I do when somebody is just starting in a program is understanding the importance of their streamline. How do they move through the water? Pulling them on a rope and making sure that they have terrible streamline and then a good streamline, so they can feel the difference of what they're doing. So many different ways that you can show them that, with their head up, with their head down, with their head in a proper streamline, with their feet dangling down, with their feet to the side. They have a lot of fun with their arms all the way out and then getting into the proper streamline. Once they understand how their body feels in the water with a good streamline, that's when it's the imperative, I believe, to really start with that underwater basics, utilizing the entire body, the core muscles, and making sure that they have a feeling for using the underwater. I personally do a lot of side kicking underwater. I use the analogy of a fish tank. I ask them, have you ever gone to a restaurant and seen fish and you're waiting in line and the fish is just sitting there like this, and then you tap on the glass and the fish goes, well, if you're like this on the side, you're going to get the energy vortices to help push your body back and forth. And a lot of times, if you're in a shallow pool, if you're doing this, that energy hits the surface and then dissipates, and it's not helping you move. So they really enjoy like going like this and getting on their sides and challenging themselves. And we put different markers down on how far they got, and really at a young age try to make sure that they understand the importance of streamlines and underwaters. Later on in the progression, and I know we're going to talk more about tools and AI later in this talk, but one of the things that I also do, and even at this young age, is I will videotape them. And we have in our short course season 25 yards. In our long course seasons, we train 50 meters. But right now we're finishing up short course yards. So if they do a push off the wall or a dive, and then I get them for the close 15-meter mark, which in our pool is 7.89 meters, I believe. And then we get their time from the 15-meter mark to the wall. So that's, another aspect where we can get the meters per second for their underwater versus their meters per second for their overwater. I will take those specific times, put them in AI, and I'll say, give me the meters per second for this underwater aspect versus the above water aspect. And a lot of times I'll use simple numbers. Let's say their underwater speed is 2.4 meters a second and their above water speed is 1.4. They can see that they're traveling 1 meter extra a second that they're underwater. So we take out a yardstick and say, you can go this much further every second you're underwater. Imagine how much less you're going to have to swim. And then you talk to them about, well, how many strokes did you take when you didn't do the streamline properly and you didn't do the underwater? You took 25. Well, when you did it, you took 10. That's 15 less per length, which in yards could be 30 less for the entire swim. So just setting these things from a very, very young age so they understand the importance of being underwater, the importance of having a tight streamline, the importance of that, holding that streamline when they do their breakouts. The other thing that I look is I try to break it into 5 different sections, and we'll talk about the stroke scorecard a little bit later. But way, way back, many, many decades ago, before all the AI and everything else, even before internet was a thing, I went ahead and I broke up each of the 4 strokes into 5 different areas: the underwater, legs, head, arms, and rhythm, and then put 5 different subcategories underneath it. And the kids would get videotaped. Back then it was a big one. And then we would go ahead and look at the recording of their swims and then give them either a 0 if they didn't get the skill right, 1 if they got it partially right, or the 2 if they got it totally right. And that would give them a score, which then you could do a spider diagram on all the different areas and see where they needed to work. So for this level, if they were going to go ahead and do that, we're basically looking at, whoops, I lost my slide. That's tactical.
Sorry.
That's okay. Level 4. There we go. We're looking at the 4 different areas, understanding with the underwater as well. So we'll look at the leg movement. How do they move for each one of the 4 strokes? We'll look at their head position for the 4 strokes. We'll look at the arm movement for the 4 strokes, and we'll also talk about the rhythm for the 4 strokes. And at this particular level, there is no pass fail, or it's just basically creating a baseline for them to understand what they need to work on. If they're more proficient in their arms, maybe we spend a little more time on the rhythm. So we look at that spider diagram, radar diagram, whatever you want to call it. And then we have a good understanding of their strengths and the challenges that they need to do as individuals. Obviously, in a team environment, you're working on all of these things all the time. And one of the good things about the stroke scorecard, too, for the novice level, is it really gives you a good understanding of maybe these are the skills that we work on. And the swimmers, the coaches, and the parents can all say, okay, this week we're working on these 5 aspects of freestyle. This next week we're working on these 5, the next week, and so on. So you have all these different areas that we can use. So you're having the same lexicon between the coaches, the swimmers, and the parents, and everybody involved, all the stakeholders, and they can see what's going on and they understand where they are too. This also makes it really good at swim meets when you're talking to parents, and it's not just about lifetime best or did you do your best time. It's about, did they improve the technical aspects that you've been working on at each one of the levels. Okay, on level 2, you want to have repeatable mechanics. Okay, you want to have consistently strong underwaters for all the 4 strokes. And then you're looking at the leg aspect. And as we all know, legs are so important for all of our strokes. And are they consistent with it? It's not just can they do it well once or twice, but can they continue that all the way through? One of the easiest ones to pick on is kicking through the breath on freestyle. Are they making sure that they do those things? Are they doing the proper head position? There's so many different ways that people talk about head position in breaststroke. Are they keeping one eye in the water when they breathe? All these different things. Are they lifting their head too high in butterfly? We also want at this point in this level really think about their distance per stroke, really maximizing their efficiency on how they're looking at everything from an efficient standpoint. And then the constant rhythm is really important. I think a lot of times with young kids, I'll go to like a little jingle that was around since the 40s, I guess, and it's dun 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 dun. And it's like, are you stopping when you're taking your breath? Are you stopping when you're getting to the wall? We have to keep it going. And the consistent rhythm, a lot of times what I'll also do here is talk about flow, and we'll go to a water fountain and turn it on and show them that when the water is flowing, it looks like one solid piece. And then we'll talk about when you do it one bit at a time where it stops and it almost looks like a sprinkler. And we want to make sure that they understand that there's a constant rhythm for all the 4 strokes so they can get the maximum efficiency while using the rhythm. And at this particular point, we might say that there's a minimum threshold that you want to do for all 4 strokes before moving forward into the next level. And again, this is important for group development and for organizational structure, where again, you're not having somebody who is a amazing freestyler but can't swim breaststroke to save their life move up into a group and is not ready to do the IM sets with them. Now, not everybody is going to be equally proficient at all strokes, as we all know, but there is certain minimum thresholds that you want to make sure that they meet before moving on to level 2. This is the same for the physiological that we talked about. So all of these pillars come together. It's not about addressing one silo and going all the way up. I'm going to, utilize all this information and have the best physiologically trained athletes. It's, well, if they can't do anything in the water properly, it doesn't make a difference how strong you are. So that's the level 2. Now we want to make sure that they've gained sufficient knowledge. They've understand basic efficiencies and rhythm. Can they control it when they're getting fatigued? And again, you're seeing the marriage of the physiological and the technical coming into place here. Can they control their underwater distance and sets in all zones? And I have different criteria for swimmers to use when they're doing different energy zones. Obviously, they're probably not going to be doing 15 meters underwater when they're doing 4/800s, but when they're doing 450s on 4 minutes, maybe they will be. We want to make sure that their breakout speed is consistent and strong. We talked earlier about their streamlines, and so many times there's a big break, no pun intended, between their underwater and their above water. And again, that's that concept of flow, and are they working with the water? At this point, you can also talk about turn times within a defined window. So it's not just the 4 competitive strokes. Now we're looking at maybe starts and turns as well. How long are they holding on to the wall? If they are holding on to the wall, what is the time that it takes them in breaststroke and butterfly to go from the time they touch to the time they push off? What is the speed that they're getting when they're pushing off? How do you take a look at that and define that as well? Basically with video and a stopwatch, and making sure that they understand what the parameters are for different levels, whereas somebody who's a brand new swimmer might take 1.2 seconds from the time they touch the wall to the time their feet leave, where somebody else who's at a higher level may take 0.6. And these are great strategies to then use inside your workouts and inside races as well, to make sure that, swims aren't just, did you have fun? Did you do a good time? That's incredibly important. But you can be very specific in, okay, well, we looked at your turn time, and your turn time on the 3rd turn was not within the defined parameter that we were training on. It was 1.2. Maybe you were breathing into that turn and adding a little time because you were fatigued. What are the things that we have to do before our next meet to make sure that we get the right adaptation and hold on to that proper mechanic when you do get tired? So these are the things at level 3 that you can really focus in on. Late in sets, we talked about this earlier with the physiological, but can you maintain it? Are you mentally strong to make sure that you're holding that technique and that distance per stroke? This is all stuff that you're looking at level 3. You want to self-correct again if your stroke is falling apart a little bit. Okay, maybe you have to remind yourself to roll, 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 and you can start to do that at this phase because you have those tools and the opportunities to do that. And again, the threshold is met to move on to the next level. Race speed. As we move up into the different levels, is the stroke maintained properly at race pace? Do they understand that their stroke rate is for each one of these races, their 50 versus their 500 or their 400? Are they at the maximum, what I call 14.9999 underwaters for the beginning of the race and for the shorter races? Do they understand where they are? Do they know what their timing is for their underwaters? How many do they do? Are they doing 11? Are they doing 13? What's the tempo that they need to hold? Are they then like listening to a metronome so they understand that this is what they're doing with their timing? All these things can be precision and really dialed in. And the higher that you get, you want to make sure that you're doing all these things. Are you making sure that when they're doing their breakout, is it incredibly precise? A lot of times the kids at the lower levels will do what I call a Statue of Liberty. And that is they'll come up with one hand like this and then kind of stop. And we want to make sure that their timing is right, where they're getting their hands, their head, their hips, and their heels all up at the same time, getting that first stroke in and making sure that it's maximizing the velocity that they had off of the start and off of the turn, which is the fastest that they're going to be. So at level 4, we're really looking at all of these things. Is the turn efficient and consistent? We mentioned earlier where they might be coming up on the last turn. Are they making sure that they're attacking that wall? And again, the faster they go into that turn, the faster they're going to come off of it, the faster they're going to start their starting velocity on that length of the swim, and then the less they're going to come down from there. We also want to make sure at this particular point that we have minimal wasted motion. They are efficient, that they are a combination of a Ferrari and a Nissan Leaf. Okay. We want to make sure that you're efficient and powerful, that they understand that if they have something going outside here, then something on the other part of their body is probably going to go here and they're going to have dual drag. So they want to make sure that what they're doing is consistent with the forward propulsion that they want, and that there's no wasted wiggles or otherwise using energy or putting their body out of position to not maximize their speed based on their technical advances. And at this particular point, we want to have a very high performance score on the different scorecards that we have. Level 5, again, full speed technical precision, seamless wall integration. They own the turn. They use their walls as weapons. They break out within the defined metric for each one of those specific races. There's no real energy leakage. A lot of time what I'll tell people when they're very efficient with their swimming and their physiological adaptation is maximized, that a lot of their longer or mid-distance swims are going to look like a Lego. They're going to start here, go up here, hold it, and then come back down. Whereas people without the technical proficiencies might look more like a ramp where they start here, go here, and then come back down, because their stroke is going out of phase and they're getting more drag and they're physiologically not prepared. So we want to make sure that they have no energy leakage due to their technical stroke within these particular races. They also want to make sure that they can make a correction inside of a race as well. And then you want to be over 90% consistently on stroke scorecards. Now, implementing the stroke scorecards is something that is incredibly easy and fun, especially today with cell phones and smartphones. What we do now is we'll print out the scorecard, we'll break the kids up into 3 or 4, and they will record each other swimming. And inside that little cohort, they will watch each other, and then independently, well, as a group, they will go through and say 0, 1, 2, knowing that the other people are going to be doing them, so we don't get this, you're 0, you're 0, you're 0, or everybody's a 2. And over time, it really gets to the point where they're very good at looking at the technical aspects of their peers. The other thing that this does is it reinforces all the different areas, the 5 different areas and the 5 different sub areas within the stroke scorecard, where they become what I call students of the sport, and Einstein speed, where they've learned so much by teaching, they've learned so much by understanding the process. Just based on these little cards and a smartphone, they become incredible students of technique. And they also understand it so much better when they're at a race, and they will tell me, ugh, I only took 5 kicks off that last wall, or I took that breath at the wrong particular spot. All these different areas where, oh, I saw 2 eyes coming out on John instead of the 1 eye, and they help each other out by knowledge, not just by saying that was a good swim, bad swim, by giving actual feedback to everyone in the particular group that they're in. All right, in the chat, I'm going to ask, does anybody use something similar to this? Any type of matrix that they use for the technical skill acquisition within their program currently? While you do that, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. I can hear my voice going a little bit. Inside this, we will
Coach.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to ask, what kind of app are you using? It's a very organized presentation. Is that an app or something?
It's funny you say that. It's a piece of paper, and
Okay.
I will show it to you now. I think Mark, should I download? Click the download button.
Yeah. So if the people watching click the download button, it'll go right to your computer.
And what is it up right now? Can I just pull it up while we're talking
now
about this?
it's up. If you go up 3 to there's page 1.
Okay, can I look at this? I'll just use page 1 so they can see the other ones.
Yes.
And okay, all right. So everybody can see what I'm looking at right now, right, Mark?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So this is so old school. All right. I again, this was done in the 90s, and things have been tweaked a little bit to with changing technical aspects. And feel free to take this, change it, do what you want with it. I'll explain a little bit of what I'm talking about here, because a lot of this verbiage is specific to our organization. So you can see here now that there's the underwater, the legs, the head position, the arms, and the rhythm. And inside of those are the 5 different subcategories for each one of the 5 categories. So if you do all that, if you get a 2 on everything, the possible points that you can get is 50. If they times it by 2, then they get a score of 100. You know, if it's 40, they get 80. And the kids understand that incredibly well based on the schooling that they've had over the years. So I'm going to go into freestyle now and look at the first thing, which is underwater. And with the underwater, what we're looking is the head supporting the head during the streamline. And I call that wink. And since I'm down in Florida, what I can do is I can have the kids get out of the pool, stand on the side, and they can take their arms and put their hands over their head, their elbows out. And if they look down at their shadow, their head looks like the pupil and their arms look like the eye. And then what I have them do is I have them close their elbows, or the inside of their elbows, together, and try to get it to where their head is down, and they try to close that so their eye basically winks. So we're using the shadow of the sun to have them understand that their elbow should not be out and they don't see an eyeball. Then when they get in the water and it's midday, they can see their own shadow in the pool and see if they're doing an eyeball or if they're doing a wink. And we try to make sure that when they're looking down at their shadow, they can see that it's a wink. And that helps them do that. So if it's close, they get 1. If it looks like an old eyeball, they get a 0. If they have nothing in there, if they can get those things together and it is close, then they're going to be solid. And the reason that we do that is as we all know, if a dolphin had a tail that was split, it wouldn't be as fast as one solid piece. So we're trying to get our body in as solid as we can. So when we're pushing through the water, we're getting that. And again, this is at the earliest levels of children in the sport. Does the swimmer use an effective body dolphin off the start and the turn? Okay, that's self-explanatory. Does the swimmer hold the streamline after the body dolphin and then do a flutter kick? There's some studies that show that some sprinters go from a dolphin kick right into the sprint. So again, that depends on what you think there is. Is there a good transition from the streamline to the first stroke? And as I mentioned before, no Statue of Liberty. Is the first stroke taken without a breath? And if they get a 1, a 2, a 2, a 1, and a 1, we're looking at, 7? So that would be their subtotal for that area. And then if you did a spider diagram out of 10 on each side, that would be the 7. And the legs, is there a consistent 6-beat kick? Are they, looking at that where they're consistently moving their legs even when they take a breath, or is it coming apart? Do the legs roll with the body? And I use the A to B, C to D philosophy. And what I mean by that is so many times the parents and the kids and the coaches are so focused on getting from point A to point B, they don't realize that their body rolls from one side to the other. And that's where the power comes in. That's where the distance per stroke comes in. That's where the lats get engaged and the whole core. So we want to make sure that the legs and the body are rolling from one side to the other. Do the legs stay within an invisible cylinder surrounding the body? I have them visualize a tall, round kitchen garbage can, the ones that I know when I was growing up, you would step on the little thing and the lid would pop up. And I tell them, do your legs stay within that? So they have that invisible cylinder surrounding them. And then is there ample ankle flexibility, the toes going in like this? And are they making sure that they're getting that flexation? Is the kick boiling the water versus splashing the water? And basically, we would only get those feet all the way out of the water and splash. So again, these would be the areas where they'd get another subtotal. Then we go into the head position. Does the head remain in a neutral position when not breathing? So they're not lifting it up too much and they're not burying it too high. I have a 16-year-old boy that's knocking on the door of 46 and he's still burying his head. And I have to go back and show him all these things like he's a level 1. But that's common, and he's just trying to push his way through. But I didn't have him as a youngster, so we have to do some remedial technical work. Does the swimmer breathe to both sides? Again, that is something that I like to do early on, and then later, if they get a little bit more proficient and they can breathe to the one side without changing their stroke and their body position, then that's fine. But 99 times out of 100, a newer age group swimmer, if they're breathing to one side, is going to be one side dominant later on in their career. And then I think we're hurting them for developmental purposes. Does the head roll with the body, with the breath? Meaning you don't have to have it independent. And what I try to do at this phase is make sure that they understand that the whole body is a unit and can roll. Do they keep one eye wet on the breath? Is there evidence of proper air exchange? And that sometimes requires going under the water with the camera, but also you can listen. If they're coming out of the water and going, then you know that they're not breathing out. Arms, I break the arms into, in all the strokes, into what I call the 4 Ps. And it's place, press, pull, and push. And this makes it a lot easier for the kids to remember, very easy for the coaches to coach and the parents to understand. And each one of the strokes has a place, press, and a pull and a push. With the place, that is, are they extending that hand all the way out? Fingertips in on the freestyle, getting that body to roll. I tell them to have one shoulder under their chin. We talk about how one of my swimmers had a rubby because he had a goatee, and he would roll so much that his inside of his shoulders had marks, but that was good. And then does the swimmer keep the elbow high on the initial catch? I call that press. I know many years later, they started to call it early vertical forearm. But when I was watching it in my head, it was basically pressing down, rolling over a log, making sure that the elbow is high and the hand is getting that catch with the forearm in the hand. Does the hand continue down the center of the body with no crossovers, so the hand isn't going all the way over, especially when they're breathing. Keeping those elbows high, that's the pull. A lot of times with the little kids, I'll call it a lazy L. I'll ask them, how do you spell pull? And they'll say Pull, and then I'll have my hand down the middle of my body where the thumb is under my belly button, and I'll have what I call a lazy L with my hands, so they understand that's it. The other things that I'll do with that is sometimes have them put their hands all the way outside on the left side and the right side on the gutter, try to push themselves up, and then bring their hands in, and then try to push themselves up out of the water in the middle, and they'll see the difference when they're engaging the big muscles rather than the small muscles with their hand outside of the pull area. And then does the hand accelerate through the finish, and I call that push. Again, you want to have does the out of water recovery aid with the body roll, so they're not recovering flat with their hand to their side or their hand and their elbow in line with their shoulders, which then inhibits body roll, which then stops them from doing distance per stroke, which then stops them from getting their lats involved in their core. Then with the rhythm, is there a heartbeat feel to the stroke? I call that riding the play. So they're leaving that hand out in front while the other one has the I guess we would call that the top of the recovery. It's the easy way to do it. Okay. So they leave that hand out, riding the place. Is there an even and noticeable body roll? So they're not, galloping on one side yet. Are there any pauses during the breaths for their rhythm? Is it that dun 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 that I talked about? And are there any pauses during the recovery? And is there a consistent stroke rate? Are they starting out at 1.3 and then ending up at 1.7 or something in the middle? And again, you get the 0, 1, 2, 3, and you get the score. So this is not an app. This is a piece of paper. Now, the reason that I laughed when you asked that was I am developing an app for this where you can have the swimmers have all this and also have a video representation of each one of the skills and then upload the swimmer and how they perform it versus a model. So when that gets completed, I'll let you guys know. But right now, a piece of paper, a smartphone, and a group of 3 or 4 kids, they have a blast doing this. I run summer camps, competitive summer camps, and this is a big part of what we do, and really say, okay, we're going to focus in on freestyle this week, and on Monday we're going to do the underwaters. Tuesdays we're going to do legs, Wednesdays arms, Thursdays rhythm. So you can get an understanding of how all this gets put together. And hopefully that is helpful. Does anybody have any questions about this stroke card? I'm in the chat right now. Yeah,
Coach.
Yes.
The one that I was referring to was the early part of the presentation that you have colored presentation. This is not the part that I'm asking.
Oh, the physiological?
The colored there, which is showing the boxes and others. Okay, I'm asking if that's an app that you are showing where you have a lot of boxes there. Is that, or that's an Excel only?
Mark, do you want to help me which one he's talking about?
Earlier, the boxes.
Let me go back here.
Earlier, the boxes.
Any of these? Tell me when I'm...
No, not the boxes itself.
But Dennis, he does use a software program that
is why.
Okay.
That is why I'm asking.
Sure.
Because it's very it's really organized.
Yes.
That is why I'm asking if it's an app or what. Okay.
I'm going to go to share the screen, and I can pull that up. Okay.
Rich, we got the slides from the.
There you go. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. No, the other one. The other one.
Well, there are a lot of others.
Do you want me to just go and open it up real quick?
Yeah.
All right, let me share the screen. Let me go here, and then I will change this to. This is Super Sports Systems, 3S.
Okay, Super Sports System. Okay,
Yes. So I'm going to go in here, and basically what this is for the
that's
seasonal
right.
planning.
So it's a Super Sports System.
Yes. And what this does is it gives us the ability to put in a beginning time and an ending time where we have a swimmer, let's say, and I'll do this specifically. Let me go to the season. Okay. If somebody is going from a 106 short course for their fly to a 102.99, let's say, and they're a young swimmer, I put in the season start date, I put in the targeted date, the number of weeks. We have a progression rate of 5.42. And what I will do then is I'll have a season generated. The black line is the aggregate of all of the energy zones for each one of the weeks. Each one of these weeks is represented here. And you can see the 4 different phases that we talked about: pull in, accumulation, realization, and taper. And each one of the energy zones that we have, 1B, 1A, zone 2, 3, 4, and 5, are represented by different color lines. And you can see that the ratio of the energy zones come in at different points of the season based on the phase that we have. And that allows us to create the weekly density for the swimmers based on the energy demands that they need to get the proper adaptation to go from point A to point B. If we have this total season in place right here, then we can take a look at the week density. And you can see that different weeks have different densities. Right now for this athlete, they're on week number 9. And these lighter colors here are more of the aerobic capacity, 1B and 1A. And as you move into here, you can see the zone 2. You can see the zone 3, zone 4, and zone 5 are also being hit. One of the things that I said in the other presentation is you can also see that this program gives us microcycles within the course of the week, where we have day 1, day 2, day 3 complementing each other, so the energy zones don't bleed into the other one and we have misadaptation. So there you can see that this athlete right now today, they're going to be doing basically 4,000 yards of 1A, 2,000 yards of 1B, and 250 yards of pure sprint.
Okay, Coach.
Yes.
My question is, so for short, it is already the software will be adjusting based on the details that you will gonna be putting in.
Yes.
All right. Okay, that's what I see. Okay, so automatic that what the software will be asking the needed information to feed him,
Yes.
and the software will automatically give you what you do on the first week up to the week 52 or week 50. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
And what's even better is each week is dynamically adjusted based on the progression curve for that particular group or athlete. So if we have a progression curve that goes through, you can see where the previous season result is and where we should be and how we get there. And each one of the energy zone paces is dynamically changed week by week to ensure the adaptation hits the athlete in such a manner that they have all their gas tanks or gears ready to perform at this particular level from a physiological standpoint. You still have the
What is
technical. Go ahead.
Coach, what is the guarantee that the app is giving a guarantee that it will work?
Well, I've been using this for well over 20 years, and it has been 98.99% accurate for everyone who's followed it. And I mean, I have people that I can give letters or whatever. I'll put somebody in there starting at, let's say, an age grouper at 523 in a 500-yard freestyle. And I'll put in, because I know that they're a hard worker and they're technically proficient and they understand the race strategies and all the other things that we're talking about with the other pillars. I'll say, okay, this athlete is capable of going 507 over the course of time. I might put in 507.98 and they might go 507.99. And it's basically the accumulated knowledge of the Soviet Union for decades of their research from the Institute of Physical Culture that was brought over by Dr. Sergei Belev. And I was fortunate enough to meet him in the early 2000s, put this into place. And my team went from being very good to 3 years later winning USA Swimming Junior Nationals. And since that time, I've used it with people throughout multiple countries, had multiple national champions, developed many national teamers and Olympians, and still use it to this day. And just to show you the efficacy of it, our program is 2.5 years old. Last year, our small team for age groupers between ages 10 and 14 was ranked 19th in the country by ASCA based on our performances. So the number of AAA and Quad A swimmers that we had versus the number of registered swimmers we had was 19th best in the country after just a little under 2 years. And I attribute a lot of that not only to this, but also addressing all the other pillars. But this is the engine that drives it. Without this, I truly don't feel qualified to create a set every day for the athletes that trust their faith in me and the parents who come in and do this. But with this system and having used it for decades and know what Dr. Sergei Belev has done and worked with him for many, many projects on these things, I have complete faith, and I have the knowledge of knowing that if you do this, if you hold these paces, if your integrity is there, you will get the result that you want. Now, you have to sleep, you have to eat right, you have to do the other things. But again, you can do all those things, but if you don't train right, then you're going to have a problem. Here's the thing that hurts, and I'm sure a lot of people here work with high-level athletes. High-level athletes want to please, they want to perform. So what happens a lot of times, if I go back into the season, you start them out over here in the beginning of the accumulation phase, and they want to do this. They want to be here. And they're like, I'm going to go fast. I'm going to go fast. I want to make, the national team. I want to do this. Well, you only have a certain amount of weeks that you can work your body at this level before you get into, overtraining and fatigued. And this system gives you that balance of when to do X, when to do Y, when to do Z. So at the end of the season, your athlete is ready. Otherwise, it's really a shotgun approach. It's luck, because what happens is the coach will put A on the piece of paper, the athlete will do B, the coach will see it as C, and describe it as D. And it's not anything that can be replicated over time. I don't like to gamble. Okay. I hate gambling. And I really hate gambling with the kids that I work with. And I don't want to go to the end of that season going, oh my God, did I do the right thing? I want to know that I gave them the framework that they needed, the opportunities that they have to do all the things that they need. And 3S is without a doubt an absolute must for anybody in my program that wants to succeed.
For short, coach, that is focused on the mileage. So the mileage system, which is, for example, before I was learning about the mileage system on Coach what's this Jackson, yeah, Simon, Coach Simon, okay, way back when he was in the Philippines. Then Coach Simon is focusing on the mileage system. Okay, so basically, when you wanted to peak, you need to make it a point that the kid will be ripe on your basis of mileage. So that's what I see in your um, system, which is more of the mileage, and there is a percentage of anaerobic and aerobic
Yeah, but
only.
it's a little bit different than that. If you think about it, it's
Mhm.
more precise. That's what I said before, precision. You have 5 different energy zones with 4 different sub-energy zones, and how precise you're doing it. So it's not just the mileage, it's
Mhm.
what zone are you hitting on what day,
Mhm.
in what phase of the
Mhm.
season, and for what time to get the adaptation that you need from that mileage. Because you could
Okay.
do a lot of different types of mileage. You could do,
Yeah.
so much. So you really have to just think about what's the purpose, what's the precise need for that athlete that day.
Okay. Got it.
Got it? Okay,
Got it.
awesome. All right, let's go on to, so we've looked at 2 of the pillars so far. We've looked at the physiological, which 3S is an absolute must for my organization, but I'm sure that other people have things that they use. I know in the past I've used the EN123 and the color coding stuff from Michigan and all these different ways to do it. For me, it just works better to have the system in place where I can tell the athlete what to do on that day, and then also have a group where they all know what to do. So it makes it easier for the
Coach,
individual.
we would
Yes.
like to acknowledge. We would like to acknowledge the one of the participant is actually a Navy major. Okay, Navy major of Bangladesh. He's the national coach of Bangladesh. That's Coach Atikur.
Oh,
Okay.
pleasure to meet you virtually. And again, hopefully we can meet in person one day as well. Thank you for attending. With the third pillar, we're talking about the tactical. How does a swimmer approach the race? You can have the engine in place. You can have the technical skills that we talked about with the level system stroke scorecards. But if you don't have a race strategy, then you're going to probably fail. So we're going to look at that from the 5 different levels. And again, all the levels address all of the pillars just in different scopes. We start out wide and then we get as precise as we can when we get up to level 5. When we're doing the first one, we're at first they're going to identify race segments. They're going to understand that not every race is one speed all the time. And it sounds simplistic to us, but if you're a new parent and a new swimmer, I don't know how many times we've all heard a very well-meaning mom or dad in the stands, and they're doing a first 100. You just go fast, Johnny, the whole time. You just go. And maybe that's not the right strategy. So you introduce the concept there. You want to also, at this stage, introduce the concept of a strong finish. And for me, that's really important because I've seen people lose spots on national teams because they just didn't finish strong, or they let the wall try to come to them instead of getting there. So if you can be at level 1 and you get to the point where they understand that every finish is important, then you're going to set them up for the potential for success later on. The other thing that I like to do at this particular stage is have intention on what they're going to do at the wall, and really making sure that the wall becomes more of part of the race, not part of the break, and not use walls as a rest, but as a place of attack. Also, at this stage, we want to make sure that they understand the basics of breathing and when to breathe and how to breathe. And sometimes more breathing is better, and not holding your breath for the first 25 of a 200 might be in their better interest as they identify that race segment. And then at this stage, they also want to be able to verbalize and intellectualize and communicate what a simple race plan is. Okay, I'm going to go out strong and come back hard. Okay, that's awesome, Larry. And then you want to be able to reflect somewhat intelligently post-race with the coach and talk about what they did and how they approached the race and what they did to maybe in the future do a little bit better. When we get to the second level of tactical, it's more of a controlled intent. At this phase, I like the swimmers, especially early in the season, to try to even split their races. We do a lot of comparing of splits with our age group swimmers so they understand and become students of how races work, making sure that they get that. Now, it sometimes it semi backfires where they'll go too slow at the beginning and then go fast at the end. But honestly, at this particular stage in their development, I'd rather they understand the concepts and maybe go a little slower than they could than not understand the concept and go a little bit off the plan that they're going to need later on. They do look at their first half and their second half. We do look at splits, see what the ratio was. Let's say in 100, did you get within 10% of what you went out? Was your first 50 maybe a second off your best time to your feet? We talk about their underwater plan. How many kicks are they going to do off the start versus how many kicks are they going to do off of the wall? What is their breakout going to look like? Are they going to be breathing on the strokes where they can? Are they going to make sure that they maximize the first couple of strokes off of the backstroke? And then we can also look at the pacing mistakes because kids are kids and new swimmers are new swimmers, and they're not going to be perfect little robots and doing everything right. And we can give them the feedback that they need to make sure that they say, okay, well, maybe I didn't do that perfect this time, but next time I'm going to do it a little bit better because I learned that I did maybe went out too fast or too slow. And over time at this stage, during the course of the season, they have a much better awareness of how splits work, and also they can put it into place. They also at this stage should be able to look at their races independently and then say to themselves and to their coaches and to their family, yeah, I did this. And I put family in there because, again, the more you can get the family involved in the race aspect and the training aspect, and we have everybody on board, you are going to save yourself so much grief in the long run. Because again, we have that, PB in the United States. Did you do your best time? Did you do your best time? Did you get a cut? Did you do this? Da, 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 da. Rather than, did you work on that last 50 like you were doing in practice? Did you do your stroke rates properly? Did you do your stroke count properly? So they can look at that. Hey, I held 1.8 all the way through, and then my last 15 meters, I was at 1.6. So these are things that I know it might sound a little high level at level 2, but again, if you're teaching these things at the young developmental phase, it's going to make life a lot better for you and for them and for their families moving forward. At the third level, you really want to have that discipline. You want to then just say, okay, you're going to negative split or you're going to even split, but it's going to be, you're going to go out in 31 and come back in, 32-2 or whatever it is for your, 100 breaststroke for a woman, let's say. You're going to have a consistent underwater count. They know that there are 11 underwaters, or they're 13, or they're 9, they're 7 off the wall, whatever it's going to be. It's consistent, and it's not just the count that's consistent, it's the tempo. I'm a recovering musician, so I try to use a lot of music with them and understanding that they do that, metronomes and speakers underwater where they can kind of go through it, and they're holding 0.89 beats per minute and boom, 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 and having a lot of fun with those things. They maintain their breathing control under their fatigue as well, and making sure that they understand what their breathing pattern is, and they're not going to, I'm going to breathe every 2 strokes all the way into that finish. If they have to make an adjustment for their race, and maybe they're at a finals and they have to do something a little different with the people that they're in, they can adjust the pacing without having panic and being in absolute total control of what they're going to do. So they can make shifts on the fly, but intelligent shifts, not, oh my God, they're going out so fast, I got to really pick it up. I've had people at the highest levels sometimes just go out way too fast on a 50 because the other people were going out too fast, and they blew their race strategy right from the beginning. And it's a tough lesson to learn at a national meet. You'd much rather learn it at a local meet when you're younger. Again, you want to have accurate race reflection, and this also means no drama. Really, what's great about swimming and what's great about having a systematic approach to everything is that it's no longer, what was your emotions on this? No, it's like, okay, your turn was, not within the 0.72 that we were looking. It was, 0.99. There was that 2/10 that you gained. And since you were a little bit slower off the wall, you didn't get as many kicks off the wall, your tempo was a little bit slower coming off. So they can really take a look at this level about those things. And you can discuss and execute a strategy. I remember once I had a 13-year-old boy who came up to me for a 1500, and he had all of his splits written out with his final time. And we looked at it and we talked about how he was going to do that. And when he got done with the swim, and he hadn't swum a mile in a long time, it was almost exact. It was really fun. It's great to watch when the light bulb comes off, or comes on rather. All right, we talked about adapting under pressure a little bit there. Your pre-race split models are created. You should know exactly what it's going to be. You do adjust to that field intentionally. You understand how to utilize the energy that you've worked so hard with 3S or whatever other system that you're using. You use the walls strategically and really with purpose. I say to the kids all the time, walls are weapons. Walls are weapons. One of the things that we also stress a lot is that second to last, whatever. If you're doing a 200, that second to last 50 is where most people have that little bit of a bump. We're going to make sure that at that point, we're going to shift our energy into that, so we don't fall into that last one, fast one mentality and only race at the end, but we really push in that middle part. And at this point, they're having less tactical errors on what their swim. So even if it's early in the season, they're still doing what they need to do from a tactical standpoint. And maybe from a physiological standpoint, they're not ready to sustain the speed over time, but they're modeling what they need to do from a tactical standpoint for later on in the season. So it's really important. And that's when you can have good swims with not so good times, because they implemented the strategy that they're going to need later on when they're shaved, tapered, and rested. And maintaining the tempo under stress. I see a lot of times people start slipping when they do that. But at level 4, we're looking at people that can hold that tempo, know what it is. Again, we talked about for training, know thy pace, hold thy pace. In racing, it's, know your tempo, hold your tempo. And those are things that as a level 4 athlete, you should be focusing in on. Level 5, again, own it and precise. They come to me with their race plan and they understand it because they may know the different phase of the season that they're in, or the competition that they're going through and how people do things. I remember in the old days, and I'm sure still in other places, and AI is going to change a lot of all this, but you could have a scenario where you have the breakdown of everybody in your heat, how they attacked their race, what their splits were, what their race strategy is in a sense, and you could train yourself to look at that information and that data and then create a strategy for your final swim based on what other people are doing, or at least know what they're going to do based on their proclivities, and make sure that you adjust mentally to that and then have your plan and stick to it. You execute your split plan precisely. Again, that word precise. We want to make sure that you do it and you hold it. You're within that, tenth of a second of what you're supposed to do. If you have to adapt and something goes wrong, you adapt with calmness, you adapt with purpose, and you adapt with knowledge that you have training, both from a physiological, a technical, and now from a tactical standpoint, to make what shifts you need to do to adjust to that race. Again, we're talking about tempo shifts as well. And you can evaluate at this stage, before you get the coach's input, like, oh gosh, I did drop my tempo a little bit there on the third 50. I have to make sure that I hold that through, or I didn't attack that wall the right way, or maybe I didn't do the underwater tempos the way that I need to do it. And you have that composure and the consistency for everything that you do from a tactical standpoint. So these are the ways that you go from that wildfire to the precision laser from a tactical standpoint. I'm going to take a break and look in the chat, see if anybody has any questions on this type of stuff. I think tactical is one of the things that we really need to do a better job as coaches at the younger level. And again, it's so much with the parents too at the younger level, is teaching them what are we looking for at each phase of the season. If we're in the accumulation stage, I know what I do is I send out an email before these competitions, and I'm telling the parents exactly what we've been working on and what we're looking for from a tactical standpoint. And I pair it with what we're doing in the pool so they understand from a physiological standpoint that, hey, we're looking for great even splits, our back ends. It may not be our personal best, but we're looking at the stroke counts. You congratulate your child if they're doing their underwaters and not taking a breath. See if we can own those types of things. So from a tactical standpoint, the kids are not always being pressured from the parents to do their best time or to do their strategy the way the parents want them to do rather than the coach. And we all know, as being in the sport for a very long time, especially with younger swimmers, that if you do all the things right, and then the kid does a negative split and they did all the stroke rates right, but they didn't get a best time, and they look up in the stands and their parents give them the look. Next time they swim, they're going to throw that race plan out the window and try to get the positive reinforcement from the parent. And if you do not educate the parents on these different levels and what you're looking for from a tactical standpoint, they are going to not be supportive of what you're trying to do because they're trying to get a cut. They're trying to get a best time at all of these different meets. And let's be honest, some of the parents live vicariously through their kids. And if they're not doing a best time, it might not reflect well on them. But if we all know what winning is, and we all know that, hey, if, John did 10 strokes, every lap, that was amazing, then we can celebrate those wins together, and the parents will be a part of that celebration. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next phase. The psychological pillar.
Coach,
Yes.
I'll just get to wake up. I'll just get to wake them up. Okay.
Okay, wake them
Guys,
up.
if you're awake, okay. Guys, if you're awake, try to give a heart, okay, or a smile. Give me an emoji, smile, or a reaction, okay.
Hey,
Please,
woohoo!
if you're really awake, okay, please show me your heart, smile, okay. Please show me,
Love it.
okay, showing that you're awake and listening, okay. Thank you, Coach.
All
The floor is
right.
yours.
Thank you so much. Keep those smileys. I like a little heart there. We have hearts. I like that. I got the fist bump. I got a flag. Love it. Love it. Love it. Smiley face. All good. This is a lot of information that I'm throwing at you at once. It's like I'm regurgitating decades of all these different things, one thing at a time. Psychological aspect of it, this is near and dear to my heart. I so much of what we do is about the psychological aspect of this. Let me go back there. Got lost that for a second. And we're back in. All right. The behavioral stability, and what I call this is basic interpersonal skills for level 1. And what we're trying to do here is look at how do they work in a group. If they can't work in a group setting, then we're going to have problems. Not everybody is Michael Andrew with their own pool in the backyard and doing one-on-one. Usually we're all in a group setting. So if we have somebody that's not following these basic personal interpersonal skills, and then it's going to affect not just them, but the whole group. Are they able to listen and execute instructions? Simple, I know, but as we all know, so many times I have this phrase, the 4 words that will never be said on my pool deck, and that is, what are we doing? If I'm going to tell you what we're doing, we're going to have paper. I'm going to explain it fully. Hopefully you know what it is before we even get started. You should have understood it from the past as well. So if you've been talking to your other swimmer and then you turn around and you go, what are we doing? Then you probably weren't listening eyes, ears, and your whole soul. So that's really important. And then can they execute? It's one thing to say to young swimmers, okay, we're going to do 10 25s butterfly on a minute, and then they do breaststroke. Do they have honest effort? Really, when you're asking them to do something, and again, this is the wildfire group, this is not the precise group, but when you say, hey, we're going to go, really fast on this one, are they giving an honest effort and going fast? Or are they just, going through the motions? Are they doing what you need to do when you're asking them stuff outside of the pool as well? This is where they need to also start to learn to read the clock and go off on a send off. I know that I also use computer clock and the program. I have the entire workout programmed, and we have beeps and different things. So are they leaving on the beep, or are they leaving on the top if we're using old school analog clocks? Do they respect the team's structure and the facilities? Are they good with the rules, the pecking order of the coaches, and are they respectful to their teammates as well? Are they emotionally stable during correction? At this point, we want to teach them that when we say, hey, your left hand is going over to the other side, we're not saying you're terrible and we hate you. Are they able to take constructive criticism and then put it into place? And again, using the pace clock appropriately for what they're doing in the first level. So this is not like anything that's fun psychological. We're not talking about some secret mental gift at this level. We're just talking about, can they get along? Can you ensure that they're part of the group and the group can move efficiently? Because without that, it doesn't make a difference how mentally tough they are if they can't work in a group environment. Okay, accountability. Big word, but very important. Okay, they can complete the full sets consistently. When we ask them to do something, they are accountable to themselves and they say, yes, I'm going to do that. If you get a group of kids where people feel that they can sit out whenever they want on the other side or whatever, your team can function, and it also brings down the culture of the team as well. So you want to make sure that at this particular level, you're instilling the fact that, hey, when we're doing a set, you're doing it and you're not stopping. They hold themselves accountable for missed effort. And obviously it's not the exact pace right now. It's more perceived exertion at this point. But, they may understand, hey, look, maybe I was going way too fast on this long set, or I wasn't going fast enough when we were doing relay sprints off the block, and they'll make an adjustment and hold themselves accountable. They demonstrate a team first behavior, and that's where it's not all about me, but it's about we. And we're focusing in on making sure that everyone in the group has the ability to do what they need to do. And it's not all about themselves and just being self-centered, to be quite blunt. They communicate with the coaches and their teammates respectfully. I think we've all seen kids at the younger levels or newer levels where they feel that they can talk back. That's not anything that can do anybody any good, whether it's that swimmer, that coach, that family, or the kids in the lane or the lane next to them. We have to make sure that we can instill on these children at this particular phase that they can communicate well. And they're not swinging back and forth from happy to aggressive. All these different things are kind of controlled. They're understanding that they are in control of their emotions, and they don't let them swing back and forth. One of the things that I also try to do at this particular stage is have them aware of the balance between their academic needs and their swimming needs. So can they start to have good time management skills where they're not letting their school projects wait to the last week before they do that? Are they aware that, I have responsibilities in the pool and out of the pool, and if I want to do well in the pool, I may have to take care of the things outside of the pool as well. And these are good skills for the kids to learn at level 2, because when they get later on, the demands on their mind are going to be so great that if they don't have the skills or the basic skills of time management, they're not going to be able to handle the pressures of high performance swimming. The third level of psychology, this is where we get into where they're understanding themselves a little bit more. They can honestly identify some of their strengths and weaknesses. And this is not just with in the water and out of the water, but also in their own head. I think a lot of times when I try to work with kids at this level, it's really saying to them, are you listening to what you're saying to yourself? You know, if you say, I suck at turns, or I hate this pool, or this official always said this, are you listening to the drama that you're the director of inside of your head? And are you changing it? Is it a strength or is it a weakness? And you can be honest with that. Also, we talked about constructive criticisms, but are you really listening? Or are you in your head going, God, I suck? You know, you can't do those things while you're getting correction and not putting that negative emotion associated with positive correction. Are you willing to change based on the feedback that you get and not go into some sort of a self-denial or the outside influences are against me? And when you get failure, can you see it as, you know, failing forward or as feedback to what you need to work on? This is a very important mental mindset for higher level athletes to have, where they don't just see their value based on a single race, but they see the value in a single race to give them the feedback that they need to sustain growth and success over the long term. You want to make sure too that you can independently maintain your intensity levels and that you're able to get yourself up when you need to get up, and you're able to keep yourself in the right state of mind when you need to be a little bit more rest. And we'll talk about the individualized zone of optimal functioning later. But really, you want to start thinking about your intensity levels and how are you regulating what you're thinking and feeling pre-race and pre-workout. And you also, at this stage, you want to recognize your emotional triggers. What are some of the things that set you off, you know, and what are some of the things that you can control, and how do you reframe those in your mind and really focus in on the things that are going to make you a positive mental outlook, not negative. Now, controlling the internal state at the fourth level of the psychological stage of development, we're looking at a consistent pre-race routine, a mental thing that basically flips the switch. We've all seen Michael Phelps do his famous arm wing swing where he has that pre-race routine that helps him. I know I have some people that rub their hands on the block or do the, you know, slap, 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 slap thing, but they have an exact number that they do. I had one young girl that would jump in for the backstroke, hold on to the starting platform and kiss her biceps. I mean, whatever that pre-race routine is, to have them learn to flip the switch so they can regulate their intensity level pre-race, which is incredibly important for long-term success. Also, using visualization intentionally. We do this a lot, especially during our camps, where we try to really, at the fourth level stage, understand the power of visualization and how it works. And we'll sit back and we'll start out with mental prep and get them into a mind in a beautiful place where they may be thinking about the final competition of the season, and they're imagining that they're at the swim meet. And the more they have the sights, the sounds, the smells, the attitude and everything there, and they can really start to visualize that success. The power of them understanding that they can change their body with their mind becomes crucial at this stage. Well, a lot of times we'll use your eyes closed and a stopwatch and a towel over your head, and I'll walk them through scenarios such as Heat 4 is in the water. They're doing their last turn. They're coming in. You know, you can feel the water dripping off your face. You're looking back. Lane 3 just hit. They're excited, you know, and then go through the whole stage and the whistles and all of that, get them up, and then do ready, go. And they'll start the stopwatch and they'll do a segment of their race. and do it in a way that they understand their underwaters, they understand their tempo, they understand when they hit the wall, and really try to strive to get to that point where they can visualize their entire race from beginning to end. And they usually start out going 100 to 100 and try to click the stopwatch that way. But over time, they actually can see it. I can see them moving slightly. I can see them really visualizing and having their body react to what their mind is thinking. And so many times, this is very powerful for them to visualize, then get in the water, try what they just saw, then reframe it, get back on the watch, do it again, so they can understand the connection between what the mind sees and what the body performs. We talked about the self-talk before, about regulating it, but then having that positive self-talk, talking about yourself in the third person, like you can do this, and so many different things that they can do to create the positive mindset that they need for positive outcomes. We've all heard the phrase for many years, garbage in, garbage out, and it's the same with the mind. If we can have them first recognize when they're doing negative self-talk and then change that to that positive self-talk and have them get the power and understanding that they are the director of the play in their head. I know the other day I was talking to somebody, I'm like, you're the Steven Spielberg. And they're like, who? And that's when I knew I was getting old. Anyway, the recovering emotionally mid-race, all of us in the middle of a race, sometimes something went wrong. And are we able to then calm ourselves down and make sure that we can make that emotional adjustment? And then you're composed under that stress, all those things that we talked about, visualizing, getting yourself ready, having a pre-race routine gives you the ability to maintain that composure before you do there. And again, responding to criticism constructively, and even more so at this point, making it positive and framing it in such a way that you can use it as a way to get better at the next level and the next race. Here's where things become a little bit more at a master level at FIS. You do identify as your optimal arousal range. You understand it completely. You know when you can turn that switch on and when you can turn it off, and you don't get yourself too pumped up too early, and you don't keep yourself too down too late. You can raise and lower your activation levels on command. You're very well aware of that. You understand your individualized zone of optimal function and your awareness. You know exactly how tweaked you need to be for you. Some people are high-end tweakers. They need to be up there like they're ready to, jump over a wall and fight the good fight. Other people need to be a little bit more calm. Any of us that have been around a ready room at a high level can see that demonstrated to varying degrees. And being composed in a championship environment, I don't know how many times you go to a national level meet with people that have not been there and done that. And even some people that have, and all of a sudden they become 8-year-olds and they're not composed at that level. If you're at Olympic trials, let's say in the US, and there's thousands of people in the stands and laser light shows and all these things, and you're just looking for a garbage can to throw up. Can you keep yourself composed in that environment and realize that, hey, it's water, it's lanes, and it's everything that I've done, which is really so important when you get to the highest levels in the sport. And really, you want to have the motivation that comes from within, and really just think about, who you are, what you want to accomplish, what you've done. You don't need the outside world to validate all of the things that you've done or to motivate you or to get you amped up. You're self-directed, and you can do that by yourself. And that is when you have individualized awareness and the ability to control your destiny in that particular phase of your development. All right, when we look at all these 4 pillars that we just talked about, we're looking at an advancement requirement. As I said earlier, there's a lot of people that might be big in one area but not big in another. If they are big with the 3S system and they can hold their paces and they can do that, but when they're in a lane with other people, they are, annoying to be with and bring everybody else down. They're not ready yet. They have to learn those basic and a little bit more advanced interpersonal skills before they can do that. Do they have the technical expertise to move forward? And that's one of the things that I notice in so many programs is the kids get fast, they work hard, they have good attitudes, they race really well, but they may be taking 30 strokes a lap and not kicking. And they move up because they're successful and they're good with their teammates and they work hard. But really, are we doing them any favors by not addressing the technical holes that they have, but just moving them up because they are capable of holding a set? If they have the tactical threshold met, but they don't have the physiological or the technical, it's really not going to make a difference. And again, if you don't have the psychological mindsets and the positive attitudes to do things, it's only going to hold you back further and further. So for each of the different levels, you're attacking them all at once, but at a different threshold of advancement criteria. One of the things that I really believe is if you have speed without structure, you have temporary gains. But if you have structure with precision, it's sustainable over time. I think it's really important that we all think about how precise can we be with our structure? What is the developmental pathway? Are we looking at all the different phases and all the different pillars to make sure that we're addressing them all? I think that too many times, and I've been guilty of this, especially when I was younger, we don't see the forest for the tree. And if we're focused in on one thing, we're not going to see the bigger picture, and that's really important. So I'm going to do the same thing that Coach was doing earlier, and I'm going to ask you to give me some sort of a symbol in the chat to make sure that everybody's wide awake. Stretch out for a second. Make sure you get your drink so we can move on to the next. Is everybody still with us? Let me know. %. Okay, I got a little smile over here. Okay, getting some more. All right, we're in. Thank you, Carilla. George, thank you. 100%. Love it. Okay, let's see where I am now in here. All right, let's look at some other considerations. I know I talk a lot about the 4 pillars, but there are so much to our sport. I mean, this is what I love about swimming and what I love about coaching is there's always something to address. There's always some way that we can help the kids, help the program, help the parents, help our coaches get better. Nobody is 100% at everything at all times. We all have areas that we can take a look at and do. So here's some other considerations that are beyond the 4 pillars that we just talked about. I think if you have a house, you're going to need those 4 pillars, but you're also going to need a lot of things to do there, and you're also going to need some paintings on the wall. So let's take a look at some of the things that we can do to amplify these things. Okay, lifestyle and physical support. Dryland. I'm going to ask people in the chat right now, how many people here really love to do dry land and are trying to find ways to incorporate their dry land into the swimming to make sure that they complement each other? Because I know that for me, that was the biggest thing. I think when I was a young coach and I didn't have the scientific background that I had, I would throw so much dry land and then do things in the water and not know what I was doing. I just did more. It's really important that the dry land and strength component of what we do is coordinated with the energy zones that we're doing in the water. And there's certain things that we can do outside of the water from a strength from for strength that can correlate, but there's also some things that we want to do in the water as well. So dryland training is really an effective way to help the body get the strength, the stability, and the coordination that's needed. I think so many times when we deal with young kids today, they're not getting the same physical background that we had in the old days, where we might go outside, run, play, jump, climb, do these things, where today they might have more schoolwork, might be in front of a screen, might have less opportunity to just move their bodies, and they don't know where they are in space. So yes, mobility, plyo, isometrics, all those things are crucially important at the developmental stage. And when you're looking at the levels, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you really want to say to yourself, okay, what type of dry land and strength training am I doing that coordinates with all the different things that we do? There's stretch cords that work. There's plyometrics, as Dennis was saying. There's isometrics. There's so many things that you can do. I've worked with Bulgarian bags, which are amazing tools to help for stability, strength, and coordination. I don't know how many people are here have ever used Bulgarian bags in the past, but they're an excellent tools. Also, flywheels for pulling actions as well. And one of the things that I was introduced to at a very high level when I worked with Randy Reese was the pulleys. And the pulley systems is something that I call it wetland. And basically, smash balls, yes. Basically, the pulley systems can do wonders for so many different things. And for those of you that aren't familiar with power towers or pulley systems, basically you have a set of pulleys on a support frame and you put some sort of a weight, whether it's a bucket of water or weights, and the swimmer attaches themselves and then swims against it. A lot of people use pulleys just for sprinting, but I have found that pulleys are an amazing way to supplement your aerobic component as well. And one of the things that I have found over the years is that by adjusting the pulleys to where the swimmer can swim, has some light resistance, and maybe is emulating their 50-meter time in a 25-meter pulley session, that they can do some very strong aerobic capacity work in the water over time, and then also find the hard water. And I think finding the hard water is very important for their stroke efficiency. And also, one of the things about being on a pulley system is it is directly correlated to what you're doing in the water for your races as well. The other areas that we want to look at are prehab and injury prevention. Making sure that we are addressing that prehab so that they're getting the shoulder stabilities that they need, that they're getting the core strength that they need, and that they're getting their bodies into a place where they can do the dry land training and their bodies can also deal with the demands of all those things that I just showed you in 3S. Yes, planking, Eric, that is amazing. We do a lot of planks. We do a lot of plyometric movements, cords, medicine balls, obviously pulleys. The flywheels are new. Bulgarian bags are great. So also mobility and stretching. And not having a full range of motion is really a limiting factor, especially when you get bigger. So having that mobility and getting the stretching involved to making sure that they can get the right distance per stroke. Pilates is amazing for all of this as well. So really, this is the physical support that you need out of the water to make sure that you're ready in the water. And again, we want to make it developmentally appropriate. So when you're looking at level 1, level 2, and level 3 athletes, what are we doing in the water? What are the energy zone requirements? What phase of the season are we in? Are we in the pull-in? Are we in the acclimation? Are we in the realization? Are we in the taper? And how is the energy demands of that specific day being emulated out of the water, so we also don't lose the adaptation in the water by doubling up the next day on an energy zone that we did a day prior. So hopefully you understand what I mean by that. Let's move on to the next slide as I go back to this. Recovery. Okay, making sure that we do restoration so we have adaptation. Without proper restoration, there is no adaptation. And one of the things that this generation of athletes is hit with is so much social media and also much higher academic loads than I believe many of us had when we were younger. I see the homework levels, at least here in Florida, are huge. The demands on their sleep. I know that there's some kids, I was up till 2 a.m. doing this. I'm like, my goodness, how are you expected to go to sleep at 2 a.m., get up at 5 a.m., do morning workouts, go to school, do dry land, do an afternoon set, do all the things that we just talked about with prehab and everything else, and then do homework. So it's really important that they have that time management skill. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we do this at a young stage, when they get to the higher levels, they're much better equipped to handle it. Making sure that they have active recovery strategies in between sets and also in between swims. For my kids, I try to tell them that 600 is the absolute bare minimum of a warm down, more like 1200, depending on the race and the size of the athlete. They make sure that they understand that they're starting out a little more in a 1A and then going to 1B for me, a little higher heart rate and then bringing it down so they can flush their system. For the younger kids, to get them into this active recovery, I use the analogy of a toilet bowl. I said, when a toilet bowl is filled, you have to flush it so it's clean. Your cells get filled with waste products when you swim. You have to flush it out like a toilet bowl. We don't want to have that all build up before your next swim or before your next set for that day. So understanding that recovery is part of that strategy is a big part of the supplemental systems outside of the 4 pillars. And then your nervous system, getting that down, and how do you make sure that you're bringing yourself down emotionally and from a CNS standpoint as well. And then travel and competition recovery. I just had a gentleman that was in Portugal for a swim meet and coming back. And, what do? Do you have compression socks? Do you make sure that you not have the air pushing down on you when you're in the plane so you don't catch what somebody else in aisle 17 has? And then making sure that, after the last day of a recovery, are you making sure that, or last day of a competition, are you getting recovered so you're ready for the next week's worth of work? And then another one of the strategies that we always have to deal with is nutrition. And swimmers are notorious for eating a lot of food, but we need it. But it's the type of food that we have that really fuels the body, and making sure that we do that. And they have to be literate in what they should be doing, when they should be eating, how much they should be eating, what's the ratio of carbs to protein and vegetables and micronutrients, and how all this works for, fueling their sets, how it works for keeping them awake during the middle of the day when they're in school. What does it do when you're at a meet? How do you make sure that you have the strategies and the fuel needed for a 4-day competition with prelims and finals, especially down here or in hotter environments? What about hydration and awareness and sweating out, the different things that you need to do? So, having a strategy for your nutrition and your hydration is incredibly important with what you're trying to do outside of the 4 pillars. This is something that I am very big on, and that is having an educational ecosystem. And what you want to try to do is, I use the word stakeholders before, because you have a stake in the success of the program. The swimmers obviously have a stake, and so do the parents and guardians. They have a stake in it as well. They're investing their time and resources into your program and into their child's education. And you want to make sure that you educate them as well. I have done something, I call it Swim Parent Academy, swimparentacademy.com, that helps people understand their role as a parent and how they can best support swimmers. It's been successful in my organization to help everybody understand what we're trying to do, when we're trying to do it, and how we're going to accomplish it. And it also helps to make sure that you have a shared language across the program. So the lexicon is the same when they go from Oh, let's just use a sea creature analogy. How many people here have swim programs where they have like flying fish into guppies, into whatever? But if we all understand and the guppy coach is saying something different than the flying fish coach, then you're going to have an issue. So having the coaches educated, the parents educated, and the swimmers educated using the same language and the same ecosystem will not only give you a more intelligent swimmer, it'll give you a more intelligent family and a lot more stability going from level to level to level and swim meet to swim meet to swim meet. Technology landscape. Okay, now that you've seen my old school stroke scorecard and how that works, I just want to let you know that I am very big on technology and how we should utilize emerging technologies to increase our observation and the data that we get. Now, obviously, I've used the scorecards and have that as a structured evaluation, but there are ways in which you can use optical sensors and readers to break down movement into numbers that AI can then utilize for stroke evaluation and also for race evaluation. So the technologies are coming now where you could have a programmed GPT for the scorecard for backstroke, let's say, and you could have an above and below video of the swimmer and put that into the program and let AI do the actual stroke card analysis for the swimmer. Obviously, there's ways to do that with AI race analysis already. But these are things that are going to give you data and feedback are the educational tools that you can use. And this is how you can communicate with your swimmers to really say, okay, we're looking at this. We talked about the turn time before. Your turn time was 0.65 versus 0.75. Great job. You've really been working on that. And all of these things, all this data is getting much easier to get these days based on the technologies that are out. Wearables, okay. Triton Wear gives you tons of feedback. Polar does great things too. It also incorporates with Flex to give you more of a sense that you're doing. I use a system, EO, where they wear sensors on their hand, and I can see the angle of their hand, the velocity curves, where they're going at certain different points, and I can pair it with the video that comes with it and sync the two together so the swimmer can see, oh, when my angle of my hand goes out like this, my velocity in meters per second drop significantly, and we can then try it with a different angle of the hand to see if they have a higher meters per second. And all of these wearables are doing things that were unimaginable even 5 or 10 years ago. And it's important that we look at these things and continue to find ways to incorporate them into the feedback loop, the technical loop, and we mentioned earlier with 3S, that type of beautiful system to give us the prescription. With Polar, there's heart rate tracking, there's workload tracking. Again, with Flex and other systems, there's velocity and stroke matrix. There's training load visualization that you can then overlay with what you believed that you did. And these data monitoring tools are getting more ubiquitous and they're also getting less intrusive. I know that a lot of us back in the day swam with heart straps on our chest. It's coming to the point where you're going to have cameras up in your pool environments that are going to be able to track every swimmer in every lane and then download immediately who's doing what they're doing in terms of their speed, their turn, their breakout time, their stroke rate. All of these things will be able to be handled maybe in 8 lanes with 32 swimmers simultaneously utilizing AI. That's where I believe the sport is going. For some of the other easier things that we can do to help with like the technical aspect, I use a program called OnForm. And it's really simple for me to capture something on my phone, whether it's above or below water. It quickly uploads into the cloud. I go to a desktop computer and I can do telestration stopping things. I can time things and utilize AI, such as I will have a swimmer do a 50 freestyle, let's say, and then we'll do their underwater. And then I think I mentioned before, if we clock them for their first 15-meter mark, which is 7.89, I believe, meters, and then their 15-meter mark, and then from the 15-meter mark into the 25-yard pool, which is 22.89 meters. You can then get the meters per second. You can show them the different ways that you're doing that, the benefits of staying underwater, or you can take a look at their meters per second using different things with a high elbow, with a high hand. All these different things are so much easier now for us to do with the technologies that are at our fingertips. And really, as coaches and as educators and as program directors, we want to look at all these videos and visual feedbacks and see, how do we incorporate them? How do we make them level specific for the different groups that we're working with, and putting together programs and protocols to give them the feedback that they need, as well as the parents and the coaches, the education that they need to put the data into place. It goes down here, I'm talking about delayed versus real-time feedback. Many of us use the delayed VCRs back in the day, so somebody could do a turn and then look and see those things. Those are good things to do as well when you have kids in the water. And then the self-review habits. They can look at races, and a lot of times I'll have the swimmers do their own race evaluation. So they'll do their analysis of the race, their underwaters, their stroke rate, their stroke turn times, their finish times, all those things. So they take ownership of their specific races and have a better understanding, again, by teaching themselves or reviewing their peers' race and going over that with them. Having this type of feedback is really important to develop Einstein speed or high intelligence swimmers even at a young age. Framework first, technology second, coaching. All right. These tools and these systems are really looking to do one thing, and that's give us the data and give us the things that we need so we can become better versions of ourselves. When I'm looking at utilizing AI for different segments of races, having AI do the math for me for meters per second is a heck of a lot easier than me trying to do it on my own. And it allows me to not have to get bogged down in math when I can get the answers immediate, and I can keep my mind into the flow of what I'm trying to do with my athletes to keep the bigger picture in place rather than being bogged down by technology. So the more we can look at these frameworks as ways in which we can do the bigger picture, the better we're going to wear them. And try not to get lost in the technology. Remember what it's used for. It's there for us. It's not us for them. Here's something that I'm working on, and I would love to get your views on this. And hopefully you can give me some feedback, because this is where I think we're going. And I think we want to try to bridge everything together, everything together. And that is using 3S or whatever system that you use for the training prescription, and then using the technology to get the data, and then overlaying the data with the actual results. Excuse this slide. All right. As I said before, coaches will write A, the swimmer will do B, they'll see C, and they'll describe it as D. It's hard to have every swimmer's time all the time. I try my best. I give them their times. I put them into small groups. I hope to do that. But if you have 32 people or 16 or whatever amount of people you work with in your group in the pool, it's virtually impossible to understand what every swimmer is doing on every length of every swim during the course of one workout or a set or a week or a season or a career. So you're going to have a hard time getting confirming that they're in the right zone. And if they are out of the zone, you might not understand that they're out of the zone a little bit too soon.
Coach,
Yes,
can we take a picture first?
sure.
So we will see if they are really they are really there as or sleeping already. Okay, guys, we would like to take a picture. Okay, open your windows now. Let's see who is really attending. Okay, again. This is only a few minutes. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That only shows that you are awake. Okay. 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 Continue. We continue.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
All right, so let me go back. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right, so here's where we are. If we can utilize the optical sensors and such as Polar and then pair it with Flex analytics, we might be able to then have a reconstruction of the set. So let's step back for a second. Earlier, you saw the 3S data. We created a season based on somebody going from a 106 to a 102. We understand what they need to do for each stroke, each energy zone, each distance. We then create a set for that particular day based on that week, based on the phase of the season. Everybody with me? All right. So now that we have that, we create that set. We put the Polar optical sensor inside the cap. Swimmer swims, the coach can actually get some metrics on an iPad immediately to see what's going on. And then the data can get downloaded at the end of the workout and then sent to Flex, where Flex can take that and turn it into stroke rate, stroke, turn times, different things. Then we can overlay it to 3S. Okay. So we're looking at the prescription layer from 3S that has the intent before we do everything, what our targets are, the expectations, the heart rates, the technical goals. Okay, we go ahead, we wear the physiological and the mechanical mechanism of the optical sensor, which can get all the data that we need. Okay, we then do a comparative analysis after it comes from Flex on planned versus actual training. And then we can get the insights and decision making. Okay, so we can get improved awareness. We can find out about their early fatigue. We can also see who is holding what at what particular points. I think those are the things that we're going to need to do in the future to make sure that we can have a large group of people and then see if they're doing the physiological aspects of what we need and eventually the technical aspects of what we need to do all these different things. Does that sound like something, and you can answer in the chat, that would be worthy of me continuing to do so we can get an affordable and usable performance lab? Because I think so many times all of these things are so out of our realms as club coaches or whatever. If we can put together systems where people can utilize existing technologies to get the feedback that they need to keep their person as precise as possible, then I think we're doing our athletes a big service. I started this out by saying precision is a big part of it. And for many years in my career, I preached about precision and pacing and holding. And it's really simple to do with a small group of highly motivated swimmers. It is a pain in the butt to do with people that maybe not there. But if you had the feedback, if you had the ability to show them, show their parents, show the coaches, hey, this is what you actually did, it would also go such a long way to help people understand from an emotional and a psychological concept that, you know what, maybe you didn't do everything you needed to do. So don't be hard on yourself if you didn't reach that goal. I mean, the feedback and the competition and the reality of what they do is really important. So I think by putting together a physical, usable tracking system that is incorporated with a precision prescription, data collection, and then precision analysis post swim can go a long way to help us. I see some hearts. I see some other things. Okay, all right. I will try to do more of that in the future. But right now, while we do this, there are tools that you can utilize to do this. It would be great if we can just have a single solution for everyone. All right, I'm going to at this point open it up, Dennis, for questions. Do you want them in the chat, or do you want it people to speak out loud? What's the best way to go here?
Any way they want. They wanted to put it on a chat, or they wanted to speak to express themselves. It's okay.
Okay, I'm with you. So feel free. I know I threw a lot at you. The 4 pillars, the supplementals, the different levels, dry land, wetland, anything that you have a question about. Feel free to ask away.
Please open your windows, guys. Okay, we are on the ending point. Please open your windows and try to ask if you anything under the sun with regards to swimming or on the topic. Okay, please. For those who are actually not a swimmer and attended this one, you may not be able to enjoy the terminologies, okay? But if I were you, attend it again. There is a video of level 1 and level 2 at WAFSU, okay?
Yeah, one of the things too that this is really useful for is the putting together a structure for a club. And as I said, this club that I'm there, that I'm at now is less than 3 years old. And having this as a structure has allowed them to be successful at a very quick stage. I think when we begin with the end in mind, individually and also as a structure, as a club, we have that by having the 5 levels put together in such a way for all 4 pillars, you're going to be able to structure a federation level type organization for individualized clubs. And then by using something like 3S, you'll be able to have individualized prescriptions for every swimmer at every level of the structure. And then by utilizing the technologies that I'm talking about at the end, you'll be able to have data reinforcement for what you're doing on a daily basis. And that's going to make you incredibly successful because you're going to have a plan. You're going to be able to prescribe properly, and you're going to be able to handhold people from the beginning stages of their journey all the way through to the elite level of the sport. And I really feel that the structure and the plan is very important. We've all heard that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'm just happy to share what I've learned over the years, and it's from a lot of trial and error. It's from doing a lot of the wrong things early on, but over the course of time, through those trials and error and through learning and through continuing my education like you guys are doing today, I've been able to put together a structure that's been pretty successful. So I see kindly share notes. I think Mark is going to make sure that the notes are all taken care of, and a replay is here as well. Does anybody want to see what it looks like in my specific club right now for the level system? I call the whole thing level system. And this is what I did. Okay, here we go. Would some of the tactical levels be applicable to other sports? Yes. And I believe this framework is important for all sports. I mean, just break it down. Just not even the tactical levels, but the physiological levels, the preparation, the psychological levels. I think performance in the human mind are one and the same, whether you're, shooting a gun or whether you're, shooting hoops or whether you're shooting to break a minute in a 100 free. So these are all things that are applicable to all sports, and I think they share so much in common with high level performance.
Okay. Any
Mark, I
more
can't hear you.
questions?
Can't hear you, Mark. Okay. Oh, gotcha. We always try to do 1 hour of dry land for you, Coach. How long is the ideal dry land for 6 to 16-year-olds? Okay. What a 6-year-old does and what a 16-year-old does, two totally different ends of the spectrum, obviously. And there's also different levels of age group swimmers. I have a 9-year-old girl who is #1 in the country, and she can do an hour of dry land without a problem. It's more speed work, more plyometrics, body weight, different things. And again, it aligns with what they're doing. And then I have some 16-year-olds that are new to the sport that are doing similar stuff. Then I have 15 and 16-year-olds that will go to a strength specific trainer that I work with as well. 1 hour of dry land is a great amount of time that gives you an opportunity to do your prehab. It gives you an opportunity to set what you need for the energy zones for that day. It depends on the equipment that you have. Is it 1 hour a day, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 1 day a week? How many days are they getting in the water? So is dry land supplemental to the swim, or is it taking place in that? So Mark, if you have any follow-ups of exactly what you're trying to do with the dry land, is it once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? If so, how are you incorporating it? I'd be happy to answer. But an
Okay, guys.
hour is great.
Okay. Um, the it's basically self-explanatory that each age group has its own levels, and each level has its own capacity. Okay. Um, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the UCSSC president. Okay, Jewel Calvo, which is from Vegan, a triathlon. Okay. We would like also to acknowledge the presence of Eric Rizonga, the continental director of Africa. Okay, so they are here, and we are on the last part of this um, lessons, okay, or seminar. Do you have any questions?
Well, Mark had he does every Wednesday. So if you're doing once a week with that age group, basically you're looking at prehab. You want to make sure that structurally that the kids at that level are taking care of their shoulders, they're getting core work. And as Coach Dennis was saying, you have to make sure that the capacity is in line and congruent with the level of athlete that you have. So I put my email in there. If you want to send me something, I can speak with you specifically on the different groups and what you do, because you also, again, have to say if you're doing it on Wednesday or you're not swimming that day, what are you doing on Tuesday and Thursday? How does everything incorporate as part of the whole? Again, the forest and the tree analogy, we want to make sure that we have that and you do it correctly. But I don't think you're going to hurt anybody once a week if you're doing things correctly. But again, you have to make sure that it's level appropriate. And that's why all these 4 pillars are broken into levels. So you're meeting the kids and the athletes where they are, and you're assigning them the different dry lands, nutrition, technical aspects, and all that based on where they are in their developmental journey.
It's
Thank you,
just
Mark.
to add on that, coach, it's like you need to look at the capacity of the body of the person. Like you want to drink water, okay? The the smaller the kid is only that's limited, maybe about 1 liter to 1.5 liter of water. If the guys which is 35 years old or 30 years old can drink 2 liters or 3 liters of water, okay, it's basically the capacity. Okay.
Yeah, one of
Uh,
the other, I'll just jump in here really quick. I know we have, people from different areas. Um, I just want to reiterate that take a look at your own program and see how are you developing your athlete from point A to point B to point C. What are the developmental markers that you're using for their development and their growth? How are you putting that into place with your education for your coaches, for your parents, for your swimmers? And is there a clear and defined path for them to go from the stage that they come into you to the stage that they want to be in there? And then really think, is my program geared to handle this? What are the facilities that I have? What are the pool times that I have? What is the equipment that I have? And then you can sit down and say, okay, well, what do we need to do to level up to make sure that we have the things that we need to meet the goals that we have? Because in the final analysis, a federation, somebody who's in charge of a national team, has much more resources than somebody who is in a small club in a rural area. They may not have the pool time that they need. They may not have the access to the equipment. But that being said, there are so many things that you can do if you're creative, if you do guerrilla
Hi
techniques, if you
again.
do those things to make sure that you
Sorry,
can give them the best that they
I
can do.
got knocked off, so I'm
Oops.
joining without video.
We can see you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good, Mark. Okay. He's like, don't worry about me. I'm not here. This was a ghost in the machine. All good, Mark.
Your stamina is incredible, Rich.
Hey, morning workouts this morning. Got some lessons coming up right now. We got workouts till 7:30, and then I have a Zoom meeting for our championship meet at that particular point. You know what? I was just telling the kids the other day, I will outwork you. I am going to demonstrate that if you are passionate about something, you're going to be intelligent, you're going to learn, you're going to have the joy, and you're never going to see work as work. You're going to see work as an opportunity to meet your goals. And I will get up early and I will stay up late to do that, because that's what I want these kids to do. When they have passion in their hearts, then they have purpose and they have all the energy that they need.
Well, you definitely proved you're outworking everybody today. More than 3 hours on the line.
Hey, no problem. No problem. I had my coffee. I'm all good.
okay, everybody. Do you have any more questions? Okay. Okay, Coach. A
Yes.
good question here is that in your team, for example, the progression. Okay, normally we see the progression in other coaches. Okay, they just started about if it's about 6 years old, some of them are starting outright within 5 to 6 sessions in a week. Okay, um, Coach, in your team, how many sessions for 6 or 7 years old in a week?
That's a great question. And really it's not as much the age as it is the level. And I'm going to share the screen here really quick again. I'm going to go to Florida Atlantic Aquatics.com. All right, let me go to swimming. All right. So here we are. Let me go to levels. You can see that I don't visit my own website often. Here we go. So this is what I was talking about with the level system here. And basically what we have is we have different groups. So instead of calling it level 1, we've made it gray, blue, national development, etc. And I've taken the technical, the tactical, the physiological, and the psychological aspects of it. Whoops, that needs to be changed. And performance. And each one of these are there. When a swimmer goes from one level to the other, their increase in opportunity may go from 6 to 6 days a week. So I try to offer as many days a week for the young kids as possible, 5 or 6 days, and they get to choose whether they want to come or not. And what I mean by that is I have no minimums, no maximums, but I offer it. And again, I meet them where they are. So to answer your question fully, when they're in the developmental stage, it'll be a couple of days a week, 2 to 4 days a week. Then when the lightning strikes and they're 6, 7, or 8 and they want to do more, they can go up to 6 days a week. And again, some of my very precocious 10 and unders do mornings. I mean, I have 10 and under kids that do mornings. They do buckets, pulleys. So they do 10 workouts a week. But what happens a lot of times is people will tell me, I'm going to go back and stop sharing the screen. People have always told me over the years, my 10 and unders are too fast. And they say, your 10 and unders are going to burn out. Well, over the years, I've had 0 kids who were top 10 in the country burn out because they were having fun and successful. The problem that happens with burnout is if you don't address all the different areas in the pillars, like if you're just going for the physiological, just going for speed, but you haven't given these exceptional 10 and unders the psychological skills and the technical skills, they're going to burn out, or they're not going to have the technique to sustain it, and then they're going to be done. But having a very precocious 9-year-old or a 10-year-old come to 8, 9, 10 workouts a week because they choose it, not mom and dad, is okay. So to answer your question, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, when they're developing at a certain level, or it's 2 to 4 times a week where they're learning the skills, once they learn the skills and they have the psychological and the physiological advantages, then they can go up to 6 days a week or more. But again, it has to be level specific, and they have to have all those things addressed before they go into that type of extreme.
Okay. Any more questions, guys? I know that the numbers are declining because some of the coaches are also having 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Again, let's take a picture all together. Open your windows and let's have last part of the session, taking pictures for attendance. Okay. Again, can you make your face near the camera or the circle so it's gonna be bigger? Okay. This is what, 2436. The view is 24. Maximum is 24. Okay. 24.
See Jocelyn making her hair better.
2, 3. Wait. Again. One, 2, 3. Okay, everybody. Just to inform you, okay, you need to communicate with me with regards to your certificate. Okay, you can send PM to me now or later, maybe about after 4 hours or 3 hours. Okay, you can send it, and you need to have a proof that you attended here by taking a picture. Okay, so guys, thank you, and coach, uh, please send me your email so I can send you your certificate. Okay, guys. Thank you so much, guys. We would like to say thank you, and we don't have the right words to say thank you to our speaker today. Okay, guys, please give a lot of hearts. Okay, to your speaker. Please show your speaker how you appreciated the efforts of what he did. Okay, please.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, thank you. Coach, thank
Most
you.
welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you. That's all, guys. That's all, guys. Thank you.